In a sun-drenched classroom, a young man named Nagi opens his mouth in a huge, lazy yawn. Deciding that it's the perfect day for a nap, Sejima Nagi settles down and falls asleep right at his desk. In the dream, a figure in a long robe, standing in an ethereal hall, bestows a blessing on someone unknown. Nagi's consciousness suddenly breaks out of the darkness. His eyes open in surprise, and bubbles float around him. He realizes that he is underwater, and he is overcome by an urgent desire to break free to the surface. Panic grips his heart as he discovers that his arms and legs are completely unresponsive. An ugly fish mouth appears before him, and he begins to doubt whether he even has a body. His human form appears as a ghostly imprint, and the feeling is as if he himself has become water. Suddenly, a stream of unknown information bursts into consciousness at breakneck speed. His eyes widen in shock as a pure stream of knowledge floods his consciousness. He realizes that he has found himself in another world, contemplating the majestic mountain landscapes. With the new understanding comes shock. He has been reincarnated into a majestic water spirit. A watery outgrowth gently touches his face, confirming that he is now this lake. A few days later, he wonders why he was given this form and whether he died to be reborn. Swimming peacefully, he begins to truly enjoy his new life on the lake. For someone who loved to dream, this quiet world turned out to be much more comfortable. A small horned rabbit with its eyes closed approaches the water to drink. Suddenly, the rabbit's eyes open. He senses a magical power in these waters. The sparkling horned rabbit calmly nestles near the shore, quietly making a gentle sound. Watching this, he thinks it's good that the animals of this world can find refuge here. He realizes that his lake has healing powers, attracting wounded animals here. A deer with a crown of flowers suddenly raises its head warily, hearing someone approaching. Two children emerge from the forest. The older boy warns his sister to be careful. He sees people for the first time. The boy asks his sister, concerned, if her wound hurts. Brave girl Nasha asks if she is considered brave if she doesn't cry. He wonders why they don't use the medicinal herbs in the basket. The children kneel by the shore, praying together to the Great Spirit. The boy, through tears, begs the spirit to heal his mother and save her life. Nagi realizes that the herbs were a sacrifice, a desperate plea for help. Suddenly, the boy's face contorts with horror. He senses the approach of a terrible threat. A huge, fierce wolf with feathered wings bursts out of the thicket, watching the children closely. The beast rushes forward, extending its sharp claws for a deadly blow. The boy covers his sister when a wall of water suddenly rises, stopping the wolf's attack. Behind the children, Nagi instinctively creates a protective water barrier. He stares at his own hand in shock, not understanding how he just did that. It dawns on him that he received the ability to control water as a great spirit of the lake. The winged wolf, knocked down from the attack by a wall of water, retreats in confusion and irritation. Realizing that his modern clothes look suspicious, he decides to change his appearance. Water streams swirl around him, transforming the clothing into a luxurious fantasy outfit. Now properly dressed, he gently assures the children that the danger is over. The boy's courage melts, and he clings tightly to Nagi, sobbing from the fear he has experienced. Looking at the mountains in the distance, Nagi gently asks who they are. With a calm expression, he prepares to introduce himself to the children. A boy named Lumina introduces him to his sister Narcia, and Nagi decides to use his old name. The children's eyes shine with delight. They ask if he is a spirit who possesses magic. Nagi confirms that he is the spirit of the lake, although he only became one recently. Narcia notices her former injured finger with delight. Her eyes fill with joy. The scratch has disappeared without a trace. She happily tells Nagi that he is incredible, because her wound has completely healed. In a close-up, Lumina's face changes from surprise to an anxious, desperate plea. He bows deeply before Nagi, begging to save his mother. Nagi looks at the crying boy with a gentle and compassionate expression. Placing his hand on Lumino's head, he calmly agrees to fulfill his request. He asks the children to promise not to tell anyone about him, and they readily swear. Nagi asks to borrow the water skin that the girl is carrying on her shoulder. He fills it with magic water, explaining that it will cure their mother. The children sincerely thank him, preparing to leave with the healing gift. He decides to give them a guard for the dangerous road through the forest. A small, cute, tadpole-like water creature is born from his hands. An internal entry from Nagipedia appears in his mind, and he decides to name the new familiar Lu. He asks if the children see a new spirit, but they shake their heads in denial. Lumina says that even though she can't see him, she feels a familiar, comforting warmth. Nagi explains that Lu is his friend and asks Lumina to be friends with him too. The little familiar nods resolutely, agreeing to keep its existence a secret. Nagi waves goodbye, instructing Lu to guard the children on the way home. Having accomplished his mission, he decides to return to the lake. His physical form dissolves, sinking into the depths of the water. He decides that there is no need to maintain a human form for now. Slowly sinking to the bottom of the lake, its silhouette resting among aquatic plants. Bubbles rise as his mind drifts in the calm darkness of the water. He feels deep satisfaction until suddenly a voice calls out to the spirit for help. From the depths, he hears a desperate plea and wonders who is addressing him. A family of dark elves stands on the shore, persecuted and seeking refuge. The father, holding the injured child in his arms, begs the spirit to save them. In response, a small breeze of water breaks out of the lake, splashing over the surface. A water familiar emerges, gently touching the unconscious, gasping child. The father scoops water from the lake and takes a few sips, throwing his head back. His eyes open wide as he feels the healing power begin to take effect. The child wakes up, asking where she is, and her father joyfully calls her by name, Helio. The father looks at his own hands, amazed that his wounds have disappeared without a trace. The healed dark elf family embraces, their ordeal finally over. Nagi's consciousness is transported to an ethereal library, where he seeks knowledge from another world. He finds confirmation that dark elves have a high affinity with spirits. The stylized image shows that they are able to see spirits and live peacefully with other elves, but their unique appearance causes people to mistakenly consider them a race of demons. In fact, they actively resist demons, despite constant misunderstanding. Nagi's expression turns grim, as he realizes this tragic and unfair fate. His bubble form appears before the elves, trying to get their attention. The family bows low, but he says there is no need for such formality. His voice rises from the depths of the lake, expressing sympathy for their plight. He invites them to settle near his lake, asking only not to pollute its waters. With concern in his voice, he urges them to take care of themselves from now on. The family gratefully accepts his kindness, and he asks for their names. Father Etna names his wife Lena and his son Helio. Nagi officially introduces himself as the Great Spirit of the Lake, welcoming the new neighbors. A month later, he wonders how Lumina and the other children are doing. He relays his thoughts to familiar Lu, asking how everyone is doing. A vision appears before him. Everyone is happy and healthy, and Lu is singing happily. Nagi smiles with relief, glad that everything is okay with them. He swims calmly in the lake, feeling a deep inner peace. The young man Nagi ponders why he became the Great Water Spirit. He remembers helping others, a boy who was protecting his sister from a monster. A new determination is forming within him, to use his power to save those in need. Reaching out through the water, he solemnly vows to help anyone in need. His silence is broken by the joyful dark elf Etna, surprised to see him. Etna smiles broadly, explaining that he would never mistake the powerful presence of a great spirit. He happily reports that since they settled near the lake, the diseases have disappeared. Nagi is interested in the health of his family and the success of the fields they cultivate. Little Helio proudly tells that he planted the seeds in fertile soil. With a warm smile, Nagi says she is looking forward to the harvest. Suddenly his face freezes. A quiet, desperate plea for help reaches his consciousness. He asks Helio if he heard anything, but the boy doesn't notice anything. The voice in his mind grows louder, calling for a great spirit to save someone. A disembodied voice pleads to save a single family from a terrible fate. A menacing, glowing magic circle erupts from the ground right beneath Nagi's feet. Without having time to react, he is helplessly drawn into a swirling magical vortex. His consciousness is forming again, this time in the form of a drop of water in a dark, unknown place. Having taken the simple form of a spirit drop, he realizes that someone's voice has called him. Getting used to the darkness, he is surprised to notice the iron bars. A crowd of small, frightened children huddles in the darkness. The terrible truth becomes clear. This is not just a prison, but a real cage. The children are dirty, in chains, trembling with fear. A boy with pointed ears sobs, begging the Great Spirit to save someone named Rudo. Nagi wonders if this high elf is the one who summoned him. Upon closer inspection, he realizes that it is not a full elf, but a half-elf. For a moment, he wonders how a half-elf was able to summon a spirit, but quickly dismisses the thought. Having assumed his full human form, he announces that he is Nagi, the Great Spirit of the Lake. He calmly asks the boy to give his name and make a wish. He introduces himself as Jonah and calls the unconscious boy his brother Ruto. Jonah desperately begs Nagi to save his only loved one, offering everything he has in return. The purpose of the summons becomes obvious. He was summoned for the power of healing. Touched by the child's kind and brave heart, Nagi decides to fulfill his request. As soon as he agrees, a glowing, intricate seal appears on the back of Jonah's hand. Jonah looks at the sign with awe, recognizing it as the seal of a contract with the spirit. Mage confirms that their official contract is now complete. With a gentle smile, he promises to fulfill Jonah's wish. Placing his hand on the unconscious Ruto's forehead, he pours pure healing water into him. The other captive children, eyes wide open, watch the miracle of healing. A heavy iron collar cracks and falls from the neck of one child. Jonah's chains crumble to dust, freeing his hands. The freed children burst into joy, their faces beaming with hope. Ruto's eyelids tremble and he slowly comes to. In a weak voice, he calls out to his older brother, and Jonah cries out his name with tears. Nagi smiles warmly, happy that her little brother is healthy again. But even after getting what she wanted, Jonas says she can't leave her other children. Nagi agrees, knowing he cannot abandon them, and they decide to run away together. A small cat-like creature timidly asks if they can escape. Nagi promises with unwavering confidence that as long as he is here, everything will be fine. Their supervisors appear, furiously demanding an explanation for the noise. A cold, all-encompassing rage flares in Nagi's eyes as he looks at the cruel people. The two thugs retreat, stunned by the powerful wave of revulsion in his presence. A memory flashes before my eyes of how one of them threatened Yoni with a knife for disobedience. Nagi's lips tremble with suppressed anger as he recalls their cruelty. The captain mockingly asks through the bars if he is too scared to answer. With a mocking smile, the man reaches through the bars to grab him. Nagi's hand transforms into a blade of pure water, severing the attacker's hand. He releases a powerful stream of water, and the bandits retreat with screams, demanding to stay away. One of the soaked attackers shouts, asking who this mysterious and strong stranger is. Water tentacles curl around Nagi's arm, demonstrating his power. Surrounded by creatures from the water, he asks if they will believe that a great spirit is before them. Giant water arms crash down on two screaming thugs with a roar. Nagi's expression is cold and focused, his movements precise and relentless. A short but brutal battle ends with a raging water tornado that engulfs everything around. He stands over the defeated, trembling bodies of two unconscious bandits. Having done his job, he calmly throws away the key taken from the guards. With a light movement, he opens the door of the cage where the frightened children are trembling. He gestures for them to come out, assuring them that they are now safe. Their escape is blocked by a new group of slave traders led by a burly man. Nagi steps forward, questioning the leader about the legality of his nefarious business. He demands to be explained how this can be called legal after the brutal abuse of children. The leader, smiling defiantly, asks what the Great Spirit has to do with these little ones. With icy anger, Nagi replies that he came precisely to save them from this filth. Behind him, a giant wave rises, crashing down on the slave traders. The leader is left panting and wet, sprawled on the cracked floor. Nagi stands above him, radiating undeniable power. He reveals his true nature as a great water spirit, promising to always watch over them. Warns that if they engage in child slavery again, there won't be a next time. His gaze is cold, and his words are a threat without a hint of a joke. One of the defeated lets out a pitiful groan of pure terror. Nagi leads the rescued children up the stairs, leaving the groaning villains behind. They go out into the streets of a large, unfamiliar city. Surrounded by children, Nagi is lost in thought for a moment, not knowing what to do next. He realizes that he has no idea where this city is, so far from his native lake. The first thing he decides to do is find out their current location. Jonah apologizes quietly, sensing his tension and preoccupation. Nagi suddenly remembers that, unlike him, the children need food. He looks at the bakery window with its loaves of bread, regretting that he has no money. The stern baker asks if he's going to buy anything, and he sheepishly admits that he doesn't have anything. The woman's gaze becomes suspicious. She asks who all these children are with him. She notes the diversity of their races, and her wariness grows. Nagi makes up an incredible story that they are all his long-lost half-siblings. He immediately worries that his emotional game has come off as too exaggerated. But the baker is moved to tears, deciding that they have gone through terrible trials. Feeling both guilt and compassion, she offers them as much food as they want. The children, and with them a small puppy-like creature, happily pounce on the bread. Nagi smiles, thinking that despite the evil in the world, there are many kind people, and the children are happy to taste their bread. The good baker explains that they are in Ilmus, south of the kingdom of Ruginis. Nagi is surprised to realize that he has been transported very far from the lake. Needing money, he asks for advice, and the baker advises him to become a merchant or artisan. A young man with dark, tousled hair freezes, realizing something important. He enters a large, noisy hall, recognizing it as the Adventurers Guild. The cheerful baker advised that becoming an adventurer was a quick way to make money. Standing in front of the bulletin board, he catches the attention of the guild registrar. Several children hide behind him when he announces his desire to take on the task. The girl explains that first he must register as an adventurer. He carefully fills out the questionnaire, hiding his true spirit identity. After registering, he is given a shiny new guild card. In order not to put the children in danger, he chooses a simple quest to gather herbs. The registrar puts a stamp on the form, preparing the task for execution. Suddenly, her voice cuts sharply through the noise of the hall, ordering everyone to step aside. Two men burst through the door, supporting an injured elf and begging for help. The guild is alarmed. They realize that this is a basilisk attack. He knows that the basilisk curse blocks any healing. Nearby, a young elven boy anxiously calls his name. His eyes are pleading, expressing a desperate desire to save the injured woman. Seeing this look, he decides to act, despite his desire to remain in the shadows. With a gentle touch, he calms the boy, promising to take care of everything. His resolve grows stronger. He cannot ignore those who need help. Inside, he struggles with himself, trying not to attract too much attention. But despite his hesitation, his hand rises, summoning a glowing ball of water. He gently touches the wounded elf's forehead with it. Her companions watch in complete shock as the healing magic begins to take effect. He calmly advises the woman to rest, hoping to leave quickly. Her friend happily exclaims that the medicine worked on his friend Philly. Philly touches her head, saying that she felt a divine presence during her awakening. She stands up abruptly, convinced that it was a real feeling. With wide, confident eyes, she insists that it wasn't a fabrication. He tries to leave with the children, telling them to speak up if anyone feels unwell. Philly runs after him down the street, begging him to stop. He turns and sees her bowing low, calling him her savior. His eyes widen in alarm as she begins to ask the questions he's been dreading. She directly asks if he is a great water spirit, fully revealing his identity. On the street, her companions rush to her, calling her name. The men reproach her for getting out of bed before she was fully recovered. He sighs in exasperation, not expecting elves' sensitivity to spirits to be so acute. Philly apologizes, but insists that she must properly thank the spirit who saved her. Her companions fall silent, realizing that elven senses do not deceive. Raising his hand in embarrassment, he admits that he is indeed a great water spirit. Overwhelmed with emotion and respect, Philly proclaims that she is honored to be saved by him. She vows to never forget this debt, causing him to feel awkward and embarrassed. He gently takes her hand, trying to calm her down from excessive emotionality. With concern in his eyes, he quietly asks if she is okay. Another adventurer interrupts them, tearfully thanking Nagi for another life saved. An elderly, elegantly dressed man approaches them, wondering who this young man is. He introduces himself as Yushan, the guild master, confirming that Nagi saved Philly. Yushan apologizes for the conversation he overheard on the street. His gaze falls on the large group of children accompanying Nagi. He notes that the street is not the place for conversation and invites everyone to the guild. The entire company takes its seats in the luxurious hall of the guild's main building. Yushan bows deeply, thanking the great water spirit for saving his adventurer. He then respectfully asks Nagi to explain why he ended up in the city. Nagi begins his story by telling how it all began with a child's call. He recounts the entire chain of events that brought him and the children here. Yushan admits with relief that he is happy for the rescued children, even if it is still hard to believe. Philly reacts in shock to the details of the draft story. She asks how a half-elf was able to summon a great spirit. Yushan explains that only high elves can do this. He confirms that the case of the half-elf is unprecedented. Jonah lowers his head, silently repeating great spirit, feeling the weight of his deed. Yushan hands Nagi a heavy bag of money for the trip. He insists that this is a sign of gratitude, because spirits rarely appear to people. He adds that it is a personal honor for him to meet such a creature. Nagi accepts the gift, realizing how deeply spirits are revered here. Yushan cheerfully offers to grant any other wish of Nagi's. He considers the proposal with one specific request in mind. Under the starry sky, he voices his desire for decent housing. Yushan arranges a spacious, beautiful house for the entire group. Inside the new home, the children are sleeping soundly. Nagi sits by the bed, quietly watching them rest. He feels deep gratitude to Yushan for providing him with shelter. The silence is broken by a soft voice addressing Mr. Nagi. He turns around and sees a small elf-like boy behind him, Jonah. Nagi gently asks what happened, suspecting that he can't sleep. Jonah bows deeply, again thanking for his rescue. His expression becomes painful. He prepares to confess his true feelings. He admits that he feels guilty, as if he had no right to summon Mr. Nagi. Bowing low, the child apologizes for his insolent act. Nagi realizes that the harsh past has broken the boy's self-esteem. He realizes that Philly and Yushan's genuine surprise only increased Jonah's anxiety. Jonah remains bent over, his small body trembling under the weight of guilt. Nagi gently places her hand on his head, saying there is nothing to apologize for. He explains that their bond is the union of the summoner and the spirit. With a warm smile, he admits that he is grateful to Jonah for calling him to see the world. He says that he is sincerely glad to meet him, and these words bring tears of relief to the boy. A sudden knock on the door interrupts their gentle conversation. Philly's voice is heard outside the door, calling her name. She enters, apologizing for her late intrusion. Philly explains that she brought an urgent message from the guild. Nagi understands the seriousness, but looks anxiously at the sleeping children. Philly and her companions offer to look after them in his absence. Sensing the sincerity in their words, he decides to entrust them with this task. He turns to Jonah, and Philly stands next to him with a reassuring smile. He explains that he has to leave for the night, and Jonah's face instantly turns sad. Nagi leans in, telling him not to make such a sad expression. He promises the excited boy that he will definitely return. He holds out his pinky finger, calling it a little amulet to seal their promise. Jonah hooks his little finger over Nagi's pinky, and the contract seal softly glows. Jonah's face lights up with a radiant smile, and he promises to wait for Mr. Nagi. The full moon watches from the dark sky over the city, wrapped in silence. A young man races through a dark forest, followed by a large owl-like creature. He moves quickly, like a bright figure cutting through the shadowy thickets. His focused gaze confirms that he has already found his target. In the moonlit meadow, he recognizes a monster. It's a basilisk. A voice comes from the formal office apologizing for the abrupt and urgent call. The guildmaster explains that he must consult with the great spirit of Nagi on an important matter. Nagi immediately guesses that this is a powerful and almost invulnerable basilisk. Yushan recalls that Philly and her companions were attacked earlier that day. He goes on to say that after Naj left, he received a report from the scouts. They confirmed the presence of a second monster, a pregnant female basilisk. A pair of monsters are rapidly approaching the city in search of food. Yushan announces an urgent quest to destroy them with a reward of 20 million. Bowing deeply, he begs Nagi for help, saying that only he can handle it. Nagi weighs the reward, but his main concern remains protecting the innocent. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, he accepts this responsibility. Slightly tired but confident, he officially agrees to the quest. Yushan thanks with all sincerity, promising to pass this story on to future generations. Already in the forest, Nagi is hardening his spirit for the upcoming battle. Two huge basilisks stand in a dark clearing, deliberating what to do next. Their narrow, luminous eyes are full of the power to petrify anyone who meets their gaze. Nagi stands still but feels his hand begin to become covered in stone. He wonders if the basilisk's gaze works on his human form. Having made his decision, his body dissolves into a whirlpool of pure water. In his new guise, he becomes convinced that the monster's cursed gaze is now powerless. He feels that an even more powerful form is needed for the fight. The water merges, taking on the form of a majestic snake-like creature. The majestic water dragon notes that this form is ideal for battle. A living basilisk crawls forward, sticking out its forked tongue. The battle begins with a furious clash of incredible force. Everything turns into a whirlwind of scales, water, and pure destructive energy. The water dragon releases a devastating stream of energy at the opponent. The blow covers the basilisk with unstoppable, overwhelming force. The monster flies into the rocky ground, shattering it into pieces. In dragon form, Nagi marvels at his own unexpected power. The wounded basilisk tries to escape, but Nagi doesn't let him. He pursues the beast, determined to finish the fight. With a hint of regret, he quietly apologizes for future cruelty. The fleeing basilisk writhes convulsively through the ruined clearing. The water dragon releases a final catastrophic stream of water. A giant whirlpool completely engulfs the fleeing monster. The stream recedes, leaving large bubbling puddles. The dragon's water breaks into safe, shining drops. Returning to human form, Nagi calmly walks towards his defeated enemy. He stops in front of the lifeless body of a giant scaly monster. She reaches out and gently touches his skin with sadness in her eyes. Recalls the guildmaster's request for a second pregnant female. With a face full of regret, he whispers a quiet apology. At the edge of the forest, he reports on the completion of the task. Notices the presence of a guild member in the shadows. Yushan emerges from the darkness, commenting that Nagi sensed his approach. Nagi jumps away without hesitation, leaving the guild to claim the trophy. He wonders if he has unknowingly used the ability to move stealthily. Having fulfilled his duty, he decides to return to the city. Yushan admits with surprise that the threat was eliminated so quickly. He bows low, sincerely thanking for saving the city from crisis. Nagi's eyes widen as Yushan hands out the quest reward. A heavy bag filled with coins is placed in front of him. He is amazed by the incredible amount he received. Yushan also gives him a beautiful, shiny black bag. It turns out to be a magical hiding place designed to store things while traveling. Nagi is amazed to learn that this bag can hold as many things as he wants. While looking at her with admiration, he hears about another gift. Yushan hands over a metal plate signifying his new rank, 4th class adventurer. Nagi is stunned because Yushan thinks he would be better off in 1st class. However, he explains that 4th is the highest rank he can assign. Although a little surprised, Nagi accepts the plate and is curious about the basilisk remains. Several men drag a huge carcass onto a cart for evaluation. Yushan insists that the city owes Nagi everything he has done. While waiting for the evaluation, Nagi decides to prepare for the return trip. That evening, the city's rooftops quietly darken under a cloudy sky. Nagi walks alone through the streets, his long cloak billowing behind him. He wonders why the basilisk ended up so close to the city. Usually these creatures live far from human settlements. A dark thought creeps into the mind. What if they were brought here on purpose? He notices a woman in a dark dress walking away down a narrow alley. Shaking off his suspicions, he decides that he is simply exaggerating. Suddenly, a group of children and his companions joyfully shout his name. He asks why they are all gathered at the inn at such a late hour. Philly explains that the children couldn't wait and insisted on meeting him. 2 toddlers with beaming smiles welcome him back. Touched by their sincerity, he feels his eyes fill with tears. "I'm home," he says, and the children throw themselves into his arms with joyful cries. Later, he tells the children that they are going on a trip tomorrow. One of the kids excitedly asks what his lake is. He describes it as a beautiful, fertile place where dark elves live happily. He reassures the children, assuring them that everyone will get along just fine. On the day of departure, the children talk excitedly about swimming and fishing. Nagi notices that the elf filly wants to say something. She admits with deep relief that she is glad to see him safe and sound. He insists that their help is nothing compared to the debt he owes him. Then she makes a solemn, sincere request to her lord. She asks if she and her companions can join his journey. Nagi wonders, dumbfounded, why they want this. Filly explains that he wants to thank her for saving his life. He looks at her two companions, wanting to hear their opinion. Gandon and Shaunas confirm that they also want to thank him. The cat-eared child happily asks if Big Sister will go with them. The children burst into cheers at the news of the new companions. Nag notes how quickly the kids adapted to the Filly group. Touched by his sincerity, Filly bows low, humbly asking for permission. Gently placing his hand on Filly's head, Nagi gratefully accepts her sincere offer of help. He smiles warmly at his new companions, saying that he is counting on them. Filly's face lights up with joy, and she vows to serve him to the best of her ability. The new team stands on the pavement, ready for the next chapter of their journey. A close-up shows the glowing seal of the contract on a hand, glowing with magical power. Guildmaster Yushan cries with gratitude, while Yona and the other child smile happily. As their covered wagon drives away, Yushan and another man openly wipe away tears as they see them off. A close-up of Nagi's determined gaze shows his readiness for the long journey. Gandon, Nagi, and Filly stand in front of the wagon. Now they are a close-knit team of travelers. Nagi holds a heavy bag of coins, full payment for the basilisk. He confirms to Yushan that the amount is correct by squeezing the bag tightly. Yushan asks if the group is leaving yet, and thanks Nagi for personally seeing them off. With a warm smile, Yushan says that Nagi will always be a welcome guest here. Nagi, a little embarrassed, admits that this greeting is enough for him. Inside the wagon, he sits down next to Filly, signaling the start of the journey. On the roof of the wagon, Nagi and the child with cat ears cheerfully announce, "Time to go." Before leaving, he asks the kids if they are all ready for the trip. Filly says she thought the children would be worried, but they are enchanted by the scenery. During a stop, Filly and one of the children gather a bundle of firewood for the campfire. Meanwhile, Gandon and Shaunas teach the children the basics of self-defense. A close-up of Nagi's hand with a glowing seal as he skillfully controls the water. He discovers that Jonah and Rui have a natural talent for spirit magic. Together with Filly, he decides to teach interested children around the campfire. Nagi thinks they are close to Rwanda, where they can rest. But hopes are dashed when the innkeeper announces that there are no places available. Before the final stop, Nagi and Filly realize that there is almost no chance of finding a place to stay for the night. Filly worries if Gandon and Shaunas have managed to find any shelter. The children notice Gandon and Shaunas coming back down the street and wave to them. They say that renting a house would take too much time. Gandon notices the disappointment on Nagi's face, guessing that the last stop was also full. Jonah assures them that they are fine in nature, but Nagi still apologizes for the lack of a roof. Someone's foot steps forward. An unfamiliar observer looks closely at the group. A boy from a dark alley notices that the travelers have a problem. Suddenly he approaches them, forcing the squad to instantly take a defensive stance. He quickly raises his hands, assuring himself that he is not a suspect. Nagi realizes that their attacker is just a scared boy. Filly apologizes for the harsh reaction, explaining that they are just being cautious in a foreign city. She adds that they are especially careful because of traveling with children. The boy listens, understanding their caution. He stands before Nagi, having heard about their difficulties, and is ready to offer a solution. The boy asks if they are looking for an inn, and Nagi confirms that they are. In close-up, the footsteps of Nagi and his squad following the mysterious leader. Smiling, the boy says he knows a good place and invites them to follow him. Filly quietly asks Nagi if it's safe, but he doesn't feel any threat from the child. Nagi looks at Filly with determination, promising that he will protect her under any circumstances. His companions are moved, vowing to protect Mr. Nagi and the children at the cost of their own lives. Nagi asks not to show too much respect in order to keep his identity a secret. Filly cheerfully promises to maintain balance in her respect, understanding his request. The boy leads them all the way to the outskirts of the city, loudly announcing his return. He shouts joyfully to a woman named Marina, who has returned and brought guests. Marina greets him and listens as he explains that he brought the travelers in search of a place to stay for the night. She is sorry to hear about their situation and sincerely offers to stay. Nagi hesitates, wondering if it would be too burdensome to host such a large group. Marina assures us that there will be enough beds for everyone and asks us not to worry. The children watch in fear as Marina explains that they are in a shelter. She clarifies that the shelter is run by followers of the Sarah religion, and the children are getting a little tense. Nagi feels guilty but decides to do everything to make them feel safe. He approaches the orphans, bowing and apologizing for the unexpected intrusion. Nagi explains that they are adventurers, showing his guild card as proof. He says their journey is about finding a safe home for orphans. Children listen, mixing curiosity with caution. One of the orphans looks closely at Nagi and his companions, sensing their kindness. She notices how sincerely they care about the children and decides that these people are good. Jonah, with tears in his eyes, promises to be polite and begs to let them stay. Nagi is deeply moved by the sincerity and power of Jonah's request. The orphans look at each other, and their caution begins to melt. One of them gently strokes Jonah's head, telling him everything is fine. Someone's hand gently touches Marina's head, conveying support. Philly smiles warmly, thanking Marina for having the courage to stand up for them. Marina also thanks him in return, her face soft and full of gratitude. They decide to stay one more night, and Marina kindly invites them inside. The next morning, Nagi offers Marina a bag of money for her hospitality. She refuses, but he insists, considering it fair payment. Philly offers to help with dinner, and Marina agrees to help. Afterwards, they prepare a wonderful feast that pleases all the weary travelers. In the kitchen, Philly wonders if Marina always cooks everything herself. She explains that other employees used to help her, but they all went to work in the city. Philly mentions the shelter's religious affiliation and asks about Sarah's faith. Marina explains that Sarah's faith is aimed at saving the weak and needy. She adds that maintaining a shelter is one of the main callings of this religion. The vision reveals to Nagi the will of the water goddess and the king of the water spirits. Philly is genuinely moved by the shelter's noble mission, her eyes shining. Nagi feels restless, clasping his hands and sinking into deep thought. He thanks Marina for dinner, but she points out that there is still plenty of food left. The little orphan explains that he wants to save some of the food for others. Marina agrees with a gentle smile, saying it's best to leave it to them. His selfless act inspires other children, who watch with new determination. The boy declares that he will work even harder to make life easier for Marini and others. Children tearfully promise that they will also work when they grow up. Marina, overwhelmed with emotion, thanks them for these sincere words. She whispers quietly that even these feelings are enough for her. Nagi watches the touching scene, his expression sad and thoughtful. The night sky is covered with clouds. There is silence and a mysterious atmosphere. There is a calm, foreboding presence in the brick room. Marina kneels in prayer, thanking the goddess and the king of spirits for their protection. A gentle voice calls her name, and a shining bubble of water appears. She looks up in surprise as the bubble bursts and new ones appear around it. A large water sphere greets her, wishing her good evening. The sphere reveals itself to be the great spirit of water, impressed by her selflessness. For the sake of the children, the spirit offers to exchange the majestic spirit stone for money. Marina, stunned, asks if this is a dream. She doesn't understand why the great spirit wants to sell such a priceless treasure. With tears in her eyes, Marina admits that her only desire is the happiness of her children. She bows low, asking how she can repay such kindness. The ethereal spirit figure replies that her gratitude is to continue loving the children. Overwhelmed with emotion, Marina swears before the great spirit of water. The next morning, as Nagi's group departs, he thanks her for her hospitality. He encourages her to continue doing her best for the children. Illuminated by a new goal, Marina promises to work even harder. Waving goodbye, Philly notices that Marina's face has become much brighter. One of the kids asks if they're leaving yet, but Nagi wants to go to the guild first. Gandon explains that it will take 3 days to check the roads and threats. Philly adds that they already booked the estate yesterday, and it should be ready today. Suddenly, a black crow sits on a branch, interrupting the conversation. His intelligent gaze rests on Naga, and black feathers slowly fall between them. A strange voice sounds in Nagi's mind with an alarming message about an upcoming meeting. A feather flies past his surprised face as he looks up. Alarmed, he wonders what that ominous feeling was. The raven disappears from the branch, leaving only the soft rustling of leaves. In a luxurious room, light glints in a glass cabinet, hinting at another location. The same raven sits in front of the dark figure, expressing eager anticipation for the meeting. The figure turns out to be a reincarnated person from Japan, whose true motives remain unknown. Nagi and Gan arrive at the Adventurers Guild to check the safety of the route. He mentions hearing about the increase in the number of monsters on the highway recently. Gan adds that a black dragon was seen over the nearby town of Farron. Nagi ponders this disturbing news, his face growing serious. He reasons that the appearance of a noble dragon so close to the city is a rare occurrence. He and Gan agree that it's worth staying longer so as not to put the children in danger. A guild member's voice suddenly echoes over the hall, calling everyone to attention. Adventurers are urgently asked to gather in front of the main bulletin board. A buzz rises in the crowd as everyone wonders what important news they are about to announce. Nagi and Gan stand among the gathered crowd waiting for news. The official representative of the guild begins her speech, confirming the increase in monster activity. At the guild, the registrar announces the results of the investigation. Her face contorts with horror as she delivers the disturbing news. The guild concluded that these were signs of a large-scale monster invasion. There is an urgent call for adventurers of level 5 and above to form an elimination squad. To encourage participation, a reward of 100,000 LUS is being offered to each participant. Gan turns to Mr. Nag, acknowledging the seriousness of the situation and asking who should speak. Nagi's hand clenches into a fist. The decision has already been made. With a confident smile, he asks Gan to join him on this mission. Gan reacts with shock and disbelief to such a bold proposal. He protests loudly, insisting that Mr. Nagi should not expose himself to such danger. Nagi calmly explains that with his participation they will be able to resolve the crisis more quickly. Convinced by this logic, Gan reluctantly agrees to the plan. Nagi, with a sly smile, urges him to sign up immediately, because time waits for nothing. They head to the registration area to participate in the liquidation operation. There, Nagi notices that many wandering adventurers have gathered. His attention is drawn to the nervous elf Frio, who is trembling with anxiety. Nagi quietly notes the elf's extraordinary sensitivity to spirits. Suddenly, the energetic beastman cheerfully shouts greetings, attracting attention. The newcomer, named Fail, cheerfully introduces himself, asking if they are also adventurers. He loudly introduces Nagi as a rank 4 water mage. Then Fail introduces Gan as a rank 4 greatsword master, considering them to be one team. A stern man interrupts the commotion, introducing himself as Guildmaster Yield. He warns that he will now reveal confidential information. His penetrating gaze demands that those who cannot keep a secret come out. He waits a few seconds for everyone to realize the weight of his words. The atmosphere in the hall changes dramatically from noisy to tense and serious. Having ascertained the silence, the Guildmaster prepares to get straight to the point. He reveals that a monster is heading to the city, a dentator. A wave of shock sweeps through the crowd, and Nagi quietly utters this ominous name. The adventurers listen with somber attention, feeling the weight of the situation. The Guildmaster continues, providing details about the terrifying threat. Dentator is a giant subdragon known as a voracious demon that crawls the earth. He confirms that scouts have identified this creature as the cause of the increased monster activity. The map shows a plan. A defensive line will be created to protect the city. Guildmeister explains that the Dentator moves slowly, so if necessary there is time to evacuate people. He sternly warns that the city will suffer severe destruction if it is not stopped. The elf-like man suggests introducing himself to learn about each other's strengths. Confident, with a scar on his face, the man is called Narg, a second-rank spearman. Two identical young men introduce themselves as Luo, a healer, and Neo, a magical swordsman. Watching the strong fighters, Nagi recognizes a nervous elf among them. Elf Frio stammers, calling out his name and mentioning that he possesses a spear and spirit magic. Nagi notices with concern that the elf's admiration for others has changed to outright fear. Slightly reserved, Nagi introduces himself as only a 4th-rank water mage. The Guildmaster instructs the adventurers to choose their own strategy. It publishes information materials and allows you to use them at your own discretion. A gloved hand reaches out, taking one of the mission documents. Narg begins handing out papers to the rest of the group. Nagi and his friends gather together to review the information they have received. Narg suggests first choosing a team leader. Others agree, discussing who should be put in this role. They conclude that this must be a high-ranking warrior capable of uniting everyone. One dwarf admits that he has no leadership qualities, and Frio agrees with him in his heart. Frio feels invisible pressure from the group, without understanding its source. The energetic werewolf, Fail, decisively raises his hand to make an offer. With a sly smile, he announces that he has a specific candidacy. He nominates Narg, praising his confident handling of the situation. Another adventurer immediately supports, urging Narg to take on the role of leader. Narg hesitates, considering that there is a rank 1 adventurer among them. The answer is a raised hand, a sign of agreement. Nagi and a still confused Frio express their support for Narg's candidacy. By unanimous decision of the group, Narg officially becomes the leader. Clenching his fist, he immediately takes command and sets himself up for rapid planning. Returning to the map, Narg announces it's time to discuss strategy. Nagi realizes that this is the first time he will be fighting alongside such strong fighters. Standing next to Gan, he quietly decides not to cause his friend any unnecessary trouble. He reminds himself to act like a normal adventurer unless an emergency occurs. Under the starry sky, the light of a majestic building shines through an elegant arched window. Inside the grand hall, sunlight streams through an arched window, flooding the hall with light. The adventurers are released, and the leader reminds them that tomorrow he is counting on each of them. Nagi and Gan decide it's time for them to go back. But just as they are about to leave, someone urgently calls Lord Nagi's name. This is Frio, who says with trepidation that she is incredibly honored to finally meet him. An embarrassed Nagi tries to waive the formalities, reminding them that they are now comrades. She insists that such an opportunity rarely comes along and asks to be allowed to host him. With a friendly smile, Nagi politely explains that others are already waiting for him. Hearing this, Frio invites all his companions. She smiles confidently, assuring that her estate will easily accommodate everyone. Nagi and Gan are speechless upon hearing that she owns an entire estate. In their shelter, Philly exclaims in disbelief. She blames Gan, asking why he didn't stop Nagi's reckless plan. A tired Gan admits that Nagi's sincere gaze prevented him from refusing. Sighing, Nagi still entrusts her with taking care of the children. Their conversation is interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. The door opens, and someone notices that the visitor has arrived sooner than expected. Frio stands on the doorstep with Fail, announcing that she has come to accompany Lord Nagi. Nagi explains to a surprised Philly that they are all heading to Frio's estate. He is suddenly alarmed by the question, why is Fail going with them? In response, Fail only shows a wide-toothed predatory grin. With a cheerful voice, Frio invites the entire group to follow her. They arrive at a majestic estate, its silhouette standing out against the sky. The children then sleep peacefully and safely in their new rooms. Gan thanks Frio, but she replies that accommodating them is nothing compared to meeting Nagi. This makes Philly wonder why the stranger respects him so much. Nagi hesitates to answer, while Frio watches with noticeable excitement. As they become closer, Nagi decides to reveal the truth to his new friends. He solemnly confesses that he is a great water spirit. With a calm expression on his face, he begins the story of how he met Philly and the children. Nagi concludes by explaining that his goal is to return home to the lake. A moved Frio calls him merciful, and Philly confirms that she thought so. Fail admits to being surprised, but that explains the power he felt. With a predatory smile, he says that now everything is in its place. Laughing, Fail admits that he felt Nagi's mysterious aura from the first time they met. Realizing the seriousness of the situation, Fail declares that they must do whatever it takes to successfully complete the mission. The members of the destruction squad gather together to review the operation plan. Nagi shakes Fail's hand, expressing gratitude and trust in his new ally. A close-up of Nagi's determined eyes marks the beginning of serious preparation. The team spends the next few days carefully planning and preparing for the mission. From the majestic estate, the companions wish the adventurers good luck in their dangerous endeavor. Nagi looks back and promises his friends and children that they will all return alive. With warm farewells, the children and Philly sincerely wish them a safe journey. The time to destroy the anicap arrives, and Frio directs the unloading of supplies. Her magical squad immediately begins setting up a defensive line to intercept the monster. She erects huge barriers, confident that they will withstand the onslaught of the threat. The muscular warrior calls out to Nagi, who confirms that he is ready to act. By simply touching the ground, Nagi unleashes a powerful stream of magic. A geyser of dirty water erupts from the depths, rising with incredible force. A huge, deep crater forms in front of them, filled with murky water. One of the comrades enthusiastically admits that such a trap is more than enough. Nagi explains that she skillfully exploits the clayey nature of the local soil. He analyzes the soil and notices that it is hardening as if it could be used to build castle walls. Another adventurer carefully carves a huge, glowing magic circle in the ground. After long preparations, everyone feels confident in their abilities. But Nagi warns that underestimating this enemy could be fatal. Scouts confirm that the battle will begin the next morning. The squad is released so they can get some proper rest before the decisive battle. One of the officers stops Nagi, praising his amazing magical skills. The twins Neo and Lua approach him, admiring his strength. Nagi thanks them for the compliment and says their names correctly with a slight smile. Their faces turn serious, and they ask him to talk after the battle. They confess their mysterious purpose. There is someone they want to introduce him to. Nagi is surprised, wondering who this person could be. The twins explain that they cannot reveal details at this point. Bowing, they persistently ask, assuring that this person also desires a meeting. With a light touch, he feels the twins' deep trust. Sensing no ill intentions, he agrees, earning their sincere gratitude. Their genuine humility convinces him of the purity of their words. Waving goodbye, he wonders who it could be. A close-up of his focused gaze shows a moment of important choice. He decides to put the mystery aside and focus on the threat of the anicap. The morning of the battle greets them with clear skies. White clouds float calmly, contrasting sharply with what is approaching. The quiet singing of birds is suddenly interrupted by loud, earthquake-like shocks. A giant foot slams into the ground, disturbing it. From the cliff, they see a monster rushing straight towards the city. Its head is covered in thick, stone-like armor plates. The monster is tearing apart the landscape, its gigantic size crushing everything in its path. The anicap heads straight for a huge swamp trap filled with water. With a loud splash, the monster's foot sinks deep into the sticky, viscous mud. A woman with bald ears shouts a signal to activate the trap. With a quick movement of his hand, Nagi adds his own power, strengthening the magical web. A powerful stream of water bursts out, binding the beast in a deadly embrace. It seems the monster has been caught. Its armored mass fills the entire crater. When some are already celebrating victory, the leader sharply warns that the battle is not over yet. Powerful paws find support in the mud, and the beast begins to rush forward. With grim stubbornness, the anicap advances, regardless of obstacles. Realizing that the trap didn't work, the magician orders the explosive mines to be activated. The ground around the monster ignites with a chain of magical explosions. A blinding light and a barrage of debris completely engulf the monster. It breaks out of the flames, its progress barely slowing. A powerful blast wave knocks Nagi back, causing him to lose his balance. He watches in disbelief as the monster relentlessly races forward. When the smoke clears, it becomes clear that the attack did not cause any damage. A deafening low roar rips through the air like a clap of thunder. Nagi watches in horror as a sonic boom destroys the defensive barriers. His comrades cry out in despair, but the leader orders them not to surrender. The magic squad receives orders to fire, to at least slow down the enemy's advance. With fierce determination, Nagi reaches out, releasing an invisible magical wave. Amidst the chaos, a man and woman ask in horror what the hell is going on. The monster, like a whirlpool of death, rolls forward, sweeping away everything in its path. Frio instantly raises a new glowing barrier in place of the destroyed wall. With cold determination, Nagi declares that now the adventurers must attack head-on. The Narg warrior thanks for the support, gripping his weapon in battle readiness. He leads a furious attack, roaring for everyone to knock the monster off its feet. An armored boot digs into the ground, preparing for a powerful strike. Jumping high into the air, Frio brings his scythe down on the beast's head with all his strength. Warrior Daria from Acceleration hits him with a huge warhammer. A burly bald fighter shouts a warning as he rushes to her aid. He calls out her name in horror as Daria falls, struck down by the monster's blow. Watching the bloody battle, Nagi realizes the chaotic reality of the adventurer's battle. The dwarf furiously blocks the monster's horn, trying to stop its breakthrough. The enraged anicap spews a roar, his eyes blazing with furious anger. A sound wave explodes in the air, knocking the warrior aside. One of the adventurers screams in pain, clutching his bloody ears. Another falls to his knees, bleeding from the unbearable pressure of the sound. Frio realizes with horror that the monster kills with just one voice. Seeing the scale of the destruction, the officer realizes that he must immediately order an evacuation. The boy calls out Lord Nagi's name in a trembling voice, clinging to a shred of hope. With a grim face, Nagi announces that he will buy them time by summoning a golem. A giant guardian of stone and soil rises from the ground, challenging the anicap. A heavy fist made of hard stone hits the monster's armored head with a thud. With one devastating blow, the beast crushes the golem's head into pieces. The blast wave throws Frio aside, and Nagi cries out her name in despair. The monster's shell cracks, revealing not flesh, but a strange liquid-like substance. Recovering from the water, Frio thanks Nagi for his help in the battle. Focusing her gaze, she calmly declares that now she will see the fight to the end herself. Her body dissolves in a whirlpool of pure water, beginning a terrifying transformation. A beautiful and terrifying water creature with the body of a snake rises before the enemy. With a sound like reality itself being torn apart, two elemental giants collide in a brilliant flash. A blinding sphere of energy explodes between them, engulfing the battlefield in a giant wave. After the explosion, a majestic water dragon soars over the ruined landscape, declaring victory. In a gloomy, rainy landscape, a drop of water falls into a puddle, creating a light circle. Under the pouring rain, a lone figure in a cloak stands before broken stone blocks. Nearby, an unconscious man lies on the wet ground, his face contorted in pain. Suddenly, a gentle, sparkling glow washes over him, relieving his torment. The wounded man is coming to his senses. One of his comrades is surprised that he is alive, the other, that his wounds have disappeared. Someone shouts happily that the anicap is dead, leaving Nagi and the elf confused. The question is whether anyone has seen what happens when a hand with a ring emits healing light. Nagi turns to his friends, beginning to explain the miraculous rescue. Holding the spirit stone, he says he prayed to it, and the great water spirit answered. His friends call it a miracle and sincerely thank him for his salvation. After the fight, his comrade jokingly points to a smiling Nagi, celebrating the victory with him. The cleaning of the battlefield is entrusted to the local adventurers guild. The winners throw a banquet, raising glasses to life and shared courage. The fox girl, Fail, asks where Gond is, noting that the matter is already settled. She laughs, explaining that Gond is sleeping at Frio's estate, happy to be alive. Nagi agrees and says he has one job to do. Twins Luo and Neo confirm that their master is watching and knows everything. Fail asks if this is the host he's talking about, and the twins say yes. Their path leads to a secluded wooden hut on the very edge of town. One of the twins says that the hut is just a gate and begins to set up communication. Concentrating, he gathers radiant magical energy between his palms. A huge glowing circle flashes before them, opening a shimmering portal. Black feathers slowly fall in the air as they step into a new world. In the grand hall, a calm voice says that he has been waiting for their appearance. An ancient gray-bearded old man greets Nagi, calling him the Great Spirit of Water. He then asks if it wouldn't be better to address him by his name from his past life. Nagi freezes in shock when the sage calls him by his former name, Sejima Nagi. Stunned by the incredible revelation, Nagi only lets out a gasp of surprise. The old man decides that it is time for him to introduce himself. With a light magical movement, he reveals his surname, Agatsuma. Shining Japanese characters flash in the air, spelling out his full name. He calls himself Agatsuma Yuki, confirming his origin from another world. Nagi freezes, realizing that he is facing another person from Japan. The wolf girl looks at her companion in surprise, asking if he is also Japanese. Sage Agatsuma says that the twins Luo and Neo will be discussed later. They whisper among themselves, plotting something mischievous against Nagi. Nagi blinks in confusion, and Fail is visibly nervous at their cryptic words. Agatsuma claps his hands, bringing Nagi's attention back to the conversation. With a sharp, magical gesture, he begins to create something out of nothingness. In a flash of sparks, a luxurious armchair and a full tea set appear. Nagi, recoiling from surprise, gently finds himself in the summoned chair. The sage invites him for a cup of tea, offering to talk. With a sly smile, he admits that he sometimes allows himself to be playful. Recovering, Nagi asks if he too came here from Japan. Agatsuma calmly confirms, adding that he appeared here 300 years ago. He recalls his confused arrival in modern suit, a feeling that Nagi is also very familiar with. Then the sage asks him the crucial question, what year it was in Japan when he left. Hesitating for a moment, Nagi prepares to answer the sage's question. He quietly says that in his world it was 2033. Agatsuma seriously says that he arrived from Earth back in 2024. The time difference confuses Nagi. He doesn't understand what it means. The diagram shows a paradox. 9 years on Earth equal 300 here. The sage explains that it is a distortion of space and time, but Nagi is only more confused. Agatsuma is surprised that the reincarnated one appeared in the form of a great spirit. He emphasizes that among all the Japanese reincarnators, Nagi is the most powerful. The sage says that he was the third to arrive in this world, and Nagi was the fourth. Nagi learns that reincarnators appear every few decades and change the course of history. Agatsuma reminds us of his title as a seer, able to see the future. He admits that he predicted the arrival of Nagi many years ago. A black raven lands on his hand, and he explains that this is how he tried to get in touch. Nagi recognizes the bird from previous disturbing encounters. The sage apologizes, admitting that he should have been clearer. He compares his failed contact to a poor smartphone signal, which created an eerie feeling. After looking at the crow up close, Nagi now even finds it cute. The mention of the smartphone creates a bridge of understanding between them, and Nagi smiles with relief. Feeling a kinship, he becomes interested in the fate of the other two reincarnations. Holding up 2 fingers, the sage grimly says that one of them has already died. The voice calls out the silhouette. It's Takashi Matoba's character. During his lifetime, he won the love of the people and later founded his own kingdom. Mage speaks with deep respect about the man who created the state. Then he inquires about the second reincarnation, and the old man's face becomes tired. The sage says that he lives in a state of eternal vacation. Nagi notices a striking difference between them, and the old man promises to introduce them later. The sage's expression changes. His gaze becomes serious and focused. He says he has an extremely important request for Nagi. It concerns 2 twins, Neo and Luo. The sage recalls the once flourishing magical country of Lunatia, where he lived for a time. He warmly describes it as a peaceful and wonderful place. Nagi notices the past tense and learns that the country was destroyed 18 years ago. The young spirit begins to understand that the twins are connected to this tragedy. Agatsuma reveals that they are the only surviving princes of the fallen Lunatia. An old friend brought them to him, hiding the babies under his hood. Since then, he has been raising them and teaching them magic, because they have shown remarkable talent. But their special feature is that they can only use magic together. When their powers combine, their power increases exponentially, allowing them to create large-scale spells. Nagi becomes interested in this and asks what exactly the sage wants from him. The elder asks to take the twins with him on the journey. He explains that due to their isolated lives, they have weak social skills. Looking him straight in the eye, he says he sees a future where Nagi will make many connections. He is sure that with him, the princes will be able to grow as individuals. Standing up, the sage prepares for a formal request. Bowing deeply, he entrusts the future of Neo and Luo Nagi. Nagi ponders the weight of this sincere request. Memories come to mind of the moments when the twins were next to fail, and how he cared for them. Nagi assures them that he will take them under his care. He adds that he has decided one thing since arriving here. Use your power to save anyone within your reach. The sage's eyes widen. He is deeply moved by this conviction. Agatsuma takes his hands, expressing sincere gratitude. He advises teaching children Nagi's special protective magic. And as a final piece of advice, make Gan your official companion. Suddenly he feels someone's presence and says that the time has come. Neo and Luo burst into the room, happily greeting their mentor. The twins stand before him, listening respectfully. The master seriously announces that from now on they must follow Nagi. Tears of shock shine in their eyes. They whisper the title of their mentor. He gently strokes one of them on the head and asks why they are so sad. He reminds them that thanks to teleportation, they will be able to visit him at any time. The sadness instantly disappears, replaced by bright smiles of agreement. The twins bow to Nagi, asking her to take care of them. The old man returns to Fail, asking about his intentions. Nagi watches with curiosity, trying to understand Fail's motives. He cuts off, saying he has his own reasons for accompanying Nagi or not. Nagi silently wonders what these mysterious reasons could be. Inside, Fail admits that he feels no hostility from Nagi's companions. Nagi says with a smile that if Fail wants to go with them, he doesn't mind. Suddenly stunned, Fail calls out Nagi's name in surprise. He declares that he won't let Nagi decide everything so easily, and the twins beam with joy. The group's chaotic first interaction brings a smile to Nagi's face. The sage notes that his open heart will attract many to him. He thanks Nagi and wishes him luck on his future journey. Nagi announces that from now on, Luo, Neo, and Fail will travel with them. Fail immediately starts messing around with the little beast people children. The toddler circles the twins, admiring their identical appearance. Nagi solemnly thanks Frio for all his help. She insists that it was a great honor for her to serve Lord Naga. She is especially grateful for the spirit he gave her as a familiar. With the last wave of their hands, the squad departs from the Frio estate. They leave in covered wagons towards the next town. Somewhere far in the sky, a huge bird cuts through the clouds, heralding new events. Meanwhile, somewhere else, a powerful sudden blow thunders. In the glow of magical chains, a captive giant black dragon appears. In human form, he is full of rage and curses people. Tightening the shackles, he swears that he will never forgive them for this. A month passes, and the detachment arrives at the border town of Mariola. They decide to rest for 10 days, and Nagi suggests trying a local delicacy. Under the starry sky, the quiet rooftops of the city look serene. Suddenly, a vision flashes in the darkness. The blazing eyes of an angry dragon. Nagi's eyes open, her sleep abruptly and painfully broken. He sits up abruptly in bed, as if from a strong blow. His gaze is wide open in shock and complete incomprehension. He sits in the darkness, trying to make sense of what he just experienced. Sharpened feelings catch a depressing presence. Looking out the window, he realizes that it is not a person, but a spirit. A dark vortex swirls over the city, and he wonders if it's a call to him. He clearly feels the pain and seething hatred of this powerful being. One of the companions also notices the presence, but is worried about leaving everyone to their own devices. He decides to act, noting that he now has much better control over his strength. An ethereal water spirit appears before him, promising to protect the area. The companion looks at the magical creature and gives it a name. He calls her Suiko and decides to go with her to investigate. Nagi entrusts the protection of his friends to the radiant spirit Suiko. After thanking him, he silently jumps out the window into the darkness of the night. He races across the rooftops, following the source of the disturbing energy. From a height, he understands that presence does not come from the estate. He realizes that the source is in a completely different place. Landing softly, he determines that it is underground. A man with glasses is already waiting for him, standing in the middle of the yard. Nagi's companion stomps the ground, sending out magic circles. Nagi senses several hidden layers beneath the stone courtyard. The satellite points to a camouflaged barrier, and Nagi asks again. He is preparing to break the defense with a powerful blow. Nagi finds himself in the center of a large hidden magical field. The satellite announces that he will break it on the count of 3. With a powerful blow, he breaks the ground and Nagi falls into the abyss. Landing softly, Nagi prepares to explore the underground cave. He moves forward, wondering if he has reached the deepest part yet. A close-up shows the young man's eye, full of confusion. In the dark cave before him is a giant black-scaled dragon bound in shining chains. With a soft crack, his narrow reptilian eye opens. The dragon senses incredible power in him, calling him a great spirit. Confirming that he is Nagi, the great water spirit, he asks his name. The beast is called the dark dragon Dazotus, and thanks you for responding to his call. He bitterly admits that he no longer has the strength to fly into the sky. Nagi listens intently as the dragon asks to grant his last wish. His story begins with a mention of his home in the gloomy demonic abyss. With sadness, Dazotus acknowledges his own recklessness. While he was away hunting, people kidnapped his unborn child. Nagi asks if he came for the egg, and the dragon confirms that it was a trap. Now he dies, corroded by curses and bound by debilitating spells. This desperation, Dazotus explains, was the reason for his appeal to Nagi. Calling him by name, the dragon begins to beg for help. His only request is to save the child from the hands of arrogant people. Nagi summons a glowing ball of water, demonstrating his healing ability. He offers to at least heal the dragon's mortal wounds, but Dazotus rejects the offer, certain that the curse is incurable. He reminds himself that the spell is eating away at his very essence from within. A brilliant light flashes as Nagi acts against the dragon's refusal. He confidently declares that he can heal everything, ignoring objections. The dragon watches in complete shock as his wounds instantly disappear. Filled with new determination, Nagi looks at the shining chains. He grips tightly at the magical shackles, preparing to break them with force. With a powerful jerk, he breaks the bonds, freeing the stunned dragon. Dazotus expresses deep gratitude, and Nagi asks about the other injuries. He emphasizes that their main goal now is to find a way up. The dragon surprises him by carefully taking him into its mouth to carry him. Dazotus gently orders to hold on tight during the escape. Gathering his strength, he prepares to break through the cave ceiling. An explosion of rock and debris marks their rapid breakthrough. The dragon bursts out of the ground, slicing through the night air with its wings. Above the city, it leaves behind a giant crater in the ground. Nagi calls out his name, begging him not to destroy the city with his friends. Sitting on the back of the beast, he learns that the child is being held in a palace in another city. Dazotus says that there is no more business here and is deeply indebted to the spirit. Nagi worries that, despite his calm demeanor, the dragon is too hot-tempered to go alone. Realizing the danger, he announces that he will accompany him. Dazotus hesitates, fearing that Nagi might be captured again. Nagi explains that his ability to change appearance will make the journey safe. The dragon expresses gratitude, and they vow to complete the mission before dawn. On the approach to the palace, Nagi inquires whether the dragon's child is there. Dazotus confirms, feeling it in the hands of the cursed people. He asks Nagi to wait, wanting to carry out the infiltration himself. He agrees, trusting, while the dragon descends to the high tower. Nagi senses a strong human presence and powerful palace security. To remain unnoticed, he transforms into a shiny, amorphous ball of water. In his new uniform, he is confident that people will not notice him. The water spirit slips past the two guards, sensing the familiar aura of Dazotus. Sailing down a stone corridor, he stops at a heavy door. Peeking through the keyhole, he sees a luxurious treasury behind it. Inside, he freezes in surprise at the unexpected picture. Not one, but two large dark eggs rest on the pillow. Having felt two equally powerful auras, he does not understand which one belongs to Dazotus. The dragon painfully recalls the cruel treatment meted out to these unborn children. In human form, Nagi vows to protect both eggs. He understands that while he can walk through walls, physical eggs cannot. Seeing the guards outside the door, he decides to act more openly. With concentration, he causes a powerful whirlpool of swirling water. The treasury door crashes off its hinges, sending the guards screaming in shock. Dazotus, watching from afar, wonders the cause of the unexpected chaos. A giant wave bursts out of the door, flooding the hallway with raging water. Nagi, racing on the crest of the stream, holds both precious eggs in her arms. He lands in front of Dazotus, who promises to thank him for this invaluable rescue. The grateful dragon carefully examines the two rescued jewels. He leans over, carefully inhaling the scent of each egg to identify them. Holding one in his hands, Nagi notes that it feels different from the other. He explains that he couldn't leave either one behind, so he took both. Dazotus agrees, calling one of them a treasure beyond the reach of humans. Nagi gently touches another one, the legendary egg of the black sacred beast Narsh. His eyes widen as he feels the egg absorb his power. While wondering what kind of creature will be born, he hears the dragon offer to give him a ride back. Nagi gratefully accepts. The dangerous mission is accomplished. In the sunlit forest, Dazotus gives thanks for the child's successful return. Nagi ponders how the great dragon can repay his help. He hints that he has an idea and one request for the beast. The scene changes to a bustling city square, full of noise and movement. His wolf-like companion, Fail, wonders if this is a festival. Nagi announces that they will leave earlier than planned to start a new life by the lake. A blonde filly woman expresses concern about crossing the border without permission. Nagi reassures her with a warm smile, asking her to just trust him. He distributes responsibilities. He instructs Fail and his group to stock up on food. Twins Luo and Neo are tasked with retrieving building materials. He orders Phil and Jonah to buy clothes, and Phil asks about his own plans. Nagi replies that he will go in search of master builders because amateurs won't be able to handle it. After thanking everyone in advance, he waves goodbye, sending everyone on their mission. He chooses the local guild as his first stop in his search for craftsmen. It is heading down the streets when it suddenly stops abruptly. He feels a powerful wave of defilement and hatred nearby. His gaze narrows, catching a familiar crumb of presence. A shimmering aura makes its way to his hypersensitive spiritual vision. Nagi's consciousness is choked by the desperate voices of the oppressed. Visions of demi-humans groaning from slavery and betrayal flash before my eyes. He realizes that the source of the hatred is a group of enslaved people. Kneeling, he touches the paving stones to pinpoint the location. Confirms that the energy comes from deep underground. He asks his spiritual companion if there are any illegally captured people there. Behind the bars of the drain, he sees a crowd of frightened prisoners. Holding his breath, he decides to act. The spirit penetrates the earth, beginning the liberation. A small water spirit, resembling a shining drop, floats through a dark stone corridor lit by torches. He feels a frozen, oppressive aura and immediately realizes that this is a prison. Seeing a man behind bars, the spirit assumes that most of the prisoners here are criminals. He does not find any innocent children among them, but continues his search. He is drawn to another chamber, where he feels a different, unusual type of energy. Inside, he finds a captive dwarf, and this confirms his suspicions. The spirit's gaze falls on the young elf, who has no criminal intent. He also notices a cat-like biskin, making sure that this group is pure from defilement. The elf raises his head in shock, wondering if the glowing orb in front of him is a great spirit. With desperation in his voice, he pleads with the great spirit to save them. The presence of the shining creature causes confusion. The prisoners whisper what is happening. The elf holds out his shackled hands, begging for mercy. Suddenly, the silhouette of a security guard shouts and orders everyone to be quiet. He rudely scolds one of the prisoners for speaking like a slave. At the same moment, a jet of water wraps around his face, instantly stopping the swearing. Nagi emerges from the darkness, quietly ordering the elf to be quiet. Someone is approaching. He quickly breaks the elf's shackles, causing him shock and disbelief. Nagi begins to awkwardly explain the situation to the confused prisoners. His gaze falls on the dejected dwarf sitting to the side. The dwarf hoarsely says to leave them here because they have nowhere to go. Nagi asks if he would want to leave if there was a place to live. The confused dwarf admits that he said it rashly. But he falls silent again, and his eyes show disbelief at this proposal. The elf firmly says that he will not stay here, and notes that the spirit is behaving very humanly. The dwarf, once again plunging into despair, speaks of complete hopelessness. He tells us that their homeland has been captured, and the blacksmith tools are no longer there. Nagi, leaning against the wall, offers them a new place. He reveals his plan to live there with a group of orphans, invites everyone to build a new homeland together. The dwarf looks at him in complete shock, not believing such generosity. Nagi smiles, admitting that he also has a personal desire to build big houses. Touched, the dwarf and the others thank the Great Spirit from the bottom of their hearts. A cat-like bisque timidly intervenes in the conversation, asking if they can leave too. A scream can be heard from another camera. Someone is trying to attract attention. The bearded man begs to take him with him. He feverishly promises that he will be useful and knows how to build houses. His eyes burn with desperation. He begs to be released. The captive dwarf warns Nagi to stay away as he is a dangerous criminal. The man behind bars begins to panic and deny that the dwarf is lying. Nagi, not stopping at his screams, turns his gaze to the other figure in the cell. Nagi feels that the quiet man deep in the cell has a pure heart and cannot be left here. Ignoring the shouts of the defiant prisoner, he approaches the silent young man. Kneeling down, Nagi gently asks why he is in this place. He wants to make sure that the young man really hasn't done anything wrong. The young man raises his head, and his freckled face is filled with sad surprise. He says that the loud prisoner was once his best friend from his hometown. He stole his money, his lover, and framed him for a crime he didn't commit. Nagi sees that despite the betrayal, this man has not fallen into the abyss of despair. He lifts the innocent to his feet, urging him to come with him. The traitor watches in shock as Nagi leads the others out. Suddenly, Nagi raises a giant wave of water that rushes towards the rest of the cells. The traitor clutches the bars, screaming in terror as the water rises higher and higher. Nagi's hand appears on the other side of the grate, and he begins to speak. He calmly says that they brought this punishment upon themselves. With a heavy look, he adds that he cannot save them. They must atone. The picture changes. The city under a cloudy sky, the view from the rooftops. At the exit, the rescued dwarf sincerely thanks the Great Spirit. Nage confirms his promise to build as many houses as needed. A cat-like bisque approaches him timidly. He admits that he has no homeland and wants to go to the lake. Nagi asks all the newcomers if anyone has another place to live. The man he saved offers to introduce him to his comrades. Elfa Limna assures her that everything is fine. He explains that they are all decent people who were brought together by fate. Back in town, someone exclaims in surprise upon seeing them. Philly, noticing the fatigue and hunger of the newcomers, urges them to eat well and rest. Nagi observes with satisfaction that there are no problems among the group. Alimna quietly calls him to discuss an important matter. He reports that the collapse released toxic fumes that spread throughout the city. Nagi learns that the merchants are already planning to leave to escape the danger. He agrees that we should quickly complete the purchases and make a plan for tomorrow. Nagi decides to personally buy the necessary things the next day. The next morning greets the city with calm skies. Wandering the streets, Nagi notices that there are significantly fewer people. Clutching a few coins in his hand, he thinks anxiously about the decline of the city. A cheerful voice calls him to come over and look at the merchandise. The shopkeeper is briskly announcing a sale. The remaining goods before closing. She greets Nagi warmly, inviting him to come in. He asks if he can look at everything and receives a warm invitation. Nagi is impressed by the assortment. The shop has both ordinary and magical items. Nagi continues to examine the rows of goods, walking alongside his companion. Suddenly, a magic ball starts to glow on the shelf, attracting his attention. The shopkeeper looks around in surprise, asking if she's lost her mind. She explains that it is a magical tool that responds to spirits. The woman picks up a rare artifact and notices that it glows brighter near the spirit. To prove it, she holds the ball between herself and Nagi, and it flashes a bright light. The glow becomes almost blinding, pulsating with increasing force. The shopkeeper, stunned, can barely find words, not believing what she is seeing. After disappearing, Nagi confesses that he is a great spirit. He adds that he is actually extremely strong. What she hears turns out to be too shocking. The shopkeeper loses consciousness, and Nagi picks her up. She lies unconscious, moaning barely audibly. Waking up, she looks around in fright, and Nagi sighs with relief. She apologizes for her reaction, shocked by the appearance of a great spirit in her shop. She instantly senses a merchant's instinct. Such a group will need supplies. The woman notes that self-sufficiency is a difficult matter, and negotiating with villages is difficult. She boldly offers to take over all their logistics, which surprises Nagi. She explains that she was planning to close the store and move on. Nagi clarifies whether she really wants to travel with them. Calling it fate, the woman begs Nagi and Alimna to accept her into the group. He notices her merchant's enthusiasm when she immediately includes all the goods from the store in the deal. The next day, a merchant named Alimna officially joins their team. As planned, the caravan departs from the city of Mariole. The wheels of the carts cut a track in the dry earth, pulling them forward. Inside the wagon, Philly confirms that they have already reached the forest, as Nagi had ordered. He admits that he wants to meet one person here, which piqued her curiosity. In the sky, against the backdrop of the moon, the silhouette of a winged creature appears, rapidly descending downwards. A giant wing hits the ground with a thud, frightening the entire group. A calm male voice greets Nagi, apologizing for the delay. A huge black dragon appears before them, its posture awe-inspiring. The Biscan girl exclaims in horror, recognizing the creature from recent rumors. The dragon calmly explains that he is a victim looking for a kidnapped child. He sincerely apologizes for scaring Nagi's companions with his appearance. The great beast, Diophades, claims to have come to thank you for your help. Nagi listens in confusion, not understanding what he is so grateful for. He notices that all his friends have fainted from shock. A glowing water protective field begins to form around. The dragon suggests leaving immediately, and Nagi quietly agrees. Spreading its wings, the giant soars into the sky, cutting through the clouds. He asks about the comfort of the trip, and Nagi assures him that everything is fine. Looking back at Yona, Nagi sees that she is feeling fine too. With a bright smile, Jonah explains the dragon's general concern. He tells her about a family of dark elves who live near the lake. Nagi is confident that she and the boy Helio will quickly find common ground. Jonah sincerely hopes that they will truly become friends. The dragon's large eye stares intently ahead, bringing the goal of the journey closer. Jonah asks with admiration if this is a lake already, and Nagi nods in the affirmative. The stunning view is reflected in her eyes, and she whispers in delight. Full of joy, Jonah calls this place Lord Nagi's Lake. The dragon descends with majestic grace to the shining surface of the water. Landing with a loud splash, he settles comfortably in the shallow water. On the shore, Nagi thanks Dazotus for keeping his promise. He promises help in the future before saying goodbye. They watch silently as the majestic beast disappears into the sky. Nagi asks Yona if she should wake the others, and she cheerfully agrees. Near the carts, they are preparing to lift the unconscious companions. Nagi looks around in surprise, hearing an unexpected voice. The dark elf Etna emerges from the shadows of the trees, greeting Lord Nagi with relief. She happily says that they have been waiting for his return all this time. Before explaining his absence, Nagi mentions that he has to introduce the guests. Etna's face changes when she notices the people among the arrivals. Nagi quickly intervenes, promising to give the details. With a sincere look, he vouches for the good character of his friends. Standing next to Nagi, the dark elf formally welcomes the newcomers. Gandun Shanaus introduces himself and talks about his connection to Lord Nagi. Alamina and the Shive Folix brothers explain how Nagi saved their lives. He asks Etna if it is okay to let his new friends live here. Nagi patiently waits for an answer, maintaining a determined expression. The tension on Etna's face disappears, and she warmly greets Nagi's trusted friends. She invites the entire group to her home to celebrate their arrival. Nod thanks her, full of hope for their future together. The young dark elf Helio looks at the guests with curiosity and a little shyness. Jonah happily meets the boy and says his name. She then introduces her cheerful younger brother, Ruto. Helio's shyness quickly melts away, giving way to a sincere smile. Jonah briskly suggests introducing everyone to each other. A fluffy bisque finds itself the center of the curious attention of two children. A gloomy dwarf and a smiling biskin stand side by side. a strange but harmonious pair. Watching this, Nagi feels confident that everyone will get along. However, thoughts of safety remind him that they are now a target. Raising his hand, Nagi summons a glowing ball of powerful magic. A huge dome of energy unfolds, covering the entire settlement. The little monster bounces off the barrier without taking any damage. Etna announces a banquet to celebrate the return of Nagi and her new friends. The full moon shines brightly amidst the starry, cloudless night. At the festival, elves laugh and raise their glasses, rejoicing together. The rabbit-like Bisque and the dwarf quietly share a peaceful moment. On the edge of the holiday, Nagi observes his new community. Later, Jonah approaches him as he stands under a tree. He asks if she is full, and the girl happily answers yes. In the distance, the dark elf Helio waves cheerfully at them. Nagi strokes Yona's head, happy that everyone has become friends. She happily reports that everyone has become close to Helio. He adds that he and his friends promised to go fishing together. Nagi allows it, but asks them to be careful and stick together. Jonah sincerely thanks him for all his efforts. He smiles, noting that he feels her gratitude because of their connection. Blushing with embarrassment, she says she wanted to say thank you in a real way. Nagi smiles softly and closes her eyes, enjoying the moment. He points to her friend, calling her, and Jonah happily runs towards him. Left alone, Nagi feels a sudden wave of exhaustion. Barely able to stand, he admits that he is exhausted. His body dissolves and sinks into the lake water. Consciousness slowly sinks into the depths, seeking rest. He decides to take a short nap to regain his strength. In the watery darkness, a distant voice calls out to him to wake up. Opening his eyes, he recognizes the vague outline of Jonas. Looking through the water, he wonders if it's morning yet. Surfacing, he greets Jonah and recalls the merry feast. In front of him stands a much older Jonah, quietly greeting him. Jonas's face fills with emotion, and she reaches for him. She happily exclaims that he is finally awake, and he notices her height. Jonas gently explains that it has been 3 years since the day he fell asleep. This discovery hits Nagi like a thunderbolt. He looks at the older Jonah, trying to make sense of the time that has passed. Jonah tearfully says that he sometimes appeared, but then fell asleep again. He sincerely apologizes for keeping her anxious for so long. She suggests he was exhausted from constantly protecting everyone. Nagi recalls the last battles, admitting that he was too exhausted. Jonah says that despite everything, she never lost faith in his return. The boy's face shines with joy as he welcomes Lord Nagi's return. With a gentle smile, Nagi confirms that he has returned, rejoicing in the strength of the grown-up Yona. He notes Jonah's impressive growth, who cryptically says he has a surprise. Yona jokingly tells the interested Nagi to close his eyes for a surprise. Hearing a sharp sound, he opens his eyes, and Jonah asks him to look. A majestic mansion appears before him, which Jonah proudly calls his new home. Stunned, Nagi awkwardly says that such a luxurious house is too big for him. Jonah explains with a warm smile that everyone just wanted to make room for him. Deeply touched, Nagi accepts the gift and promises to put it to good use. Yona eagerly leads him inside, and Nagi quietly announces his return. Inside, he admires the majestic staircase, appreciating the work of the dwarves. I decide to thank them for their incredible skill. Suddenly, his gaze stops at a dark object on a pedestal. Recognizing the dragon's egg, he runs quickly over, shouting in alarm. He hugs him close, regretting his long absence. Touching the shell, he feels a rhythmic pulse from within. He sighs with relief, realizing that everything is fine with life inside. Jonah explains that everyone took turns warming and talking to the egg every day. Nagi thanks Yoni, feeling guilty for the trouble he caused. Jonas smiles brightly, saying that it wasn't a burden because everyone acted together. Concerned about his safety, Nagi asks if there were any monster attacks during his sleep. Jonah assures that everything was calm, thanks to Philly and a spirit named Suiko. Nagi asks in surprise who Suiko is. Jonah confirms with a smile as water particles begin to sparkle around him. An ethereal, long-haired spirit figure appears, warmly greeting him as a father. Apologizing for his long absence, Nagi looks at the beautiful creature. Suiko assures her that it was no problem, as Lady Yona was nearby. Jonah proudly explains that she asked her to guard the lake, and she obeyed. Nagi is deeply impressed by her achievement and newfound strength. He recalls their contract, realizing how much Jonah has grown spiritually. Her magic and skills surpassed all his expectations. Nagi closes his eyes, captivated by Jonah's inner maturity. A sudden noise from outside interrupts his thoughts. He listens warily, wondering what is going on there. Jonas assumes everyone has gathered to see him. The doors open, and a crowd of familiar faces greet Nagi happily. Overwhelmed with emotion, he apologizes for his sudden and prolonged disappearance. Philly meekly brushes it off, saying that the main thing is that he is alive and well. The bald man announces a feast in honor of Nagi's awakening. As the crowd disperses, he wonders how everyone got together so quickly. Yona whispers that she secretly gathered everyone to arrange a surprise for Lord Nagi. Nagi asks if it's okay to invite other children, and Yona happily agrees. A warm smile blooms on his face as he imagines the upcoming holiday. The banquet is bustling with excitement, the hall is filled with new faces, and the aromas of dishes. The dark elf Etna happily greets Nagi, exclaiming that so much time has passed. Nagi thanks them for their hospitality, noting that the celebration is much more magnificent this time. Etna explains that the new dark elves helped with the fields, so the harvest was bountiful. Looking around, Naj realizes how much their community has grown in his absence. Etna bows low, apologizing for acting without his knowledge. Nagi brushes it off, saying he doesn't mind as long as everyone lives in peace. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Etna cannot hold back her tears at such generosity and trust. Another elf approaches, holding out a plate of fresh salad for Lord Nagi. He tastes and enthusiastically calls the dish delicious, pleasing the cooks. The elf invites him to visit the fields where these greens are grown. She also recommends visiting the new forge, which was built quite recently. A stocky dwarf with a white mustache, Garud, loudly greets Lord Nagi. Nagi thanks him, knowing that he and his men built his house. Garud modestly says that he only fulfilled his promise. He proudly admits that building so many homes was a real pleasure. The beastman adds that thanks to the dwarves, their settlement has become a real city. Nagi stares at the smiling faces, filled with quiet happiness. The next day, under a cloudy sky, he sets out to survey the changes in the land. People work in the fields, creating a peaceful and productive scene. From afar, Jonas calls out to him, waving his hand vigorously. In front of the new multi-story buildings, Nagi admits in amazement that this is already a city. The beautiful elf Almina cheerfully invites Lord Nagi to her shop. Jonah proudly confirms that this bustling establishment belongs to Almina. The merchant talks about trading local trophies and crops. Nage notices that the residents have become much wealthier. Almina gratefully adds that high-ranking forest monsters yield valuable materials. After the visit, Nagi and Jonas head to the forge. Jonah calls out to Gyrud as they enter the spacious and well-equipped workshop. The dwarf greets them with pride, declaring that he gave it his all. He hands Nagi a richly decorated sword, asking him to take a look. Nagi examines the weapon, admiring the intricate ornamentation on the blade. The dwarf reveals that while digging, they found deposits of the legendary mithril. Showing his blade, Gyrud confesses that he has a request. He asks Nagi, as a great spirit, to bless the sword. Nagi realizes that since the mithril was mined on his land, it is possible. Raising his dagger, he unleashes a blinding whirlwind of power. The blade flashes a blinding light as Nagi infuses it with his spiritual power. Garud and another dwarf freeze in mute delight, their eyes wide with amazement. As the glow fades, Garud exclaims that the weapon has become a true sword of the spirit. Nagi explains that it is now one of the 10 greatest blades, available only to the worthy. He turns and hands the legendary weapon to his young companion, Yoni. Stunned, the boy accepts the priceless gift with a trembling hand. A vortex of water aura rises around Jonah, enveloping his body and sword. The guy whispers with admiration that he is incredibly handsome. Feeling dizzy from his wasted strength, Nagi assures him that in time he will master the blade. Their quiet moment is interrupted by a girl who bursts into the forge in a panic. Someone scolds Luna for making a fuss, but she apologizes, insisting that the matter is urgent. Luna and another child stand before Nagi, serious faces filled with anxiety. They report that a dragon messenger has arrived, wishing to see Lord Nagi. Nagi wonders in surprise what could have brought such an important guest. In a sunlit clearing, a horned man respectfully greets a great spirit. He calls himself Donif and confirms that he came from Dragon Village. His face darkens as he admits that he came with a last will. The words about the last will strike Nagi, forcing him to ask again in horror. Donif's shoulders sag slightly, and his gaze is filled with heavy, inexpressible sadness. Nagi invites the distressed messenger to his place to hear the gruesome details. In a quiet room, he asks the guest to tell him what happened. The horned dragonborn begins the tragic story of Lord Dazotus' hideout. In the flashbacks, a huge dragon appears, living peacefully among his people. Their peace was shattered by the arrival of a messenger from the human kingdom. The arrogant guest boldly insulted Lord Dazotus and demanded a meeting with him. The dragon angrily refused, unable to bear such contempt. The messenger left quietly, but his gaze held a cold threat. The threat was fulfilled. He returned with a full army. Without warning, the soldiers launched a brutal attack on the village. The messenger shouted, branding the dragonborn as savages for their loyalty. At first, elite warriors bravely held the defense, but then the heroes of the kingdom appeared. Lord Dazotus was forced to intervene, letting out a deafening roar. His devastating blast of energy swept away the human army, throwing it far away. The people rejoiced, certain that their defender had repelled the attack. But Dazotus, with a stern look, warned that it was too early to rejoice. He declared his intention to destroy the foolish people in order to save the village. The dragonborn begged him not to risk it, but he stopped them with one last request. He entrusted his child to Nagi if he himself did not return from the battle. The messenger ends by telling us that after a fierce battle, Lord Dazotus never returned. Suddenly, a soft rustling came from a nearby basket. Its occupant had woken up. Nagi's eyes widen as he realizes what's in the basket. The messenger carefully reveals the secret. This is the child of Dazotus, the young prince Belagius. The little dragon gently rises from the basket, making a soft sound. With a soft stomp, he settles down right on Naga's lap. The great spirit reaches out, gently touching the little sleeping prince. Closing his eyes, Belagius gently presses his face against his hand. A tear of sadness rolls down Nagi's cheek for the orphaned heir. Gently caressing the child, he inquires about what became of Lord Dazotus's remains. His face softens as he thanks the Dragonborn for their loyalty and the pain of loss. Looking at the sleeping prince, he makes a solemn promise to take care of him. Nagi offers his strength to the village if trouble strikes them again. The messenger leaves, asking to protect Belagius with all possible warmth. Left alone with the dragon, Nagi quietly contemplates its future. He promises to raise Belagius worthy of his father's greatness. A week passed, and the prince's training began with fun games. The little dragon exclaims happily, full of enthusiasm for learning. Nagi gently hugs the baby, wondering if he played with everyone. He announces the start of the hunt and leads Belagius into the forest. A sudden rustling in the bushes attracts the prince's attention. A small wobbly slime appears, which Nagi greets with a smile. This slime began to come to eat the leftovers from Belagius's hunts. Nagi finds him funny, and even finds a way to communicate with him. He jokingly scolds the slime for trying to swallow something it shouldn't. Continuing their hunt, they hear a new, disturbing rustling in the bushes. Through the thick foliage, Nagi and Belagius notice an unknown creature. In the clearing stands a majestic hippogriff, a powerful and dangerous beast. He lets out a piercing scream that echoes through the forest. Spreading its huge wings, the hippogriff rushes forward, exposing its sharp claws. With a determined roar, Belagius accepts the attack, striking with his head with all his strength. A powerful collision throws both opponents in different directions. The hippogriff cries out in pain and surprise, not expecting such resistance. The two predators now stand opposite each other, ready for another charge. Belagius lets out a soft moan, vulnerable to the beast's piercing scream. Nagi notices with alarm that the prince is starting to lose strength. Suddenly he realizes that the hippogriff's scream has a paralyzing effect. However, he believes that Belagius's natural dragon power will overcome this obstacle. The slime on Nagi's shoulder also seems to be showing concern. The Great Spirit decides to intervene only in case of real danger. The forest shakes with another powerful blow, raising a cloud of dust and leaves. Belagius falls to the ground exhausted, the hippogriff's sharp claws hanging nearby. The hippogriff looms over the trembling prince and lets out a victorious, piercing cry. Nagi's hand suddenly flies forward. He understands that the fight is too difficult for the baby. Suddenly, two huge, luminous eyes flash in the darkness. The world around him dissolves, turning into an oppressive darkness that catches Nagi by surprise. He wonders aloud whether this eerie space is the creation of Belagius himself. Closing his eyes, he feels the familiar and immense power of the dark dragon. Belagius seems to permeate every bit of this darkness with his presence. There is a low, trembling growl. The prince shudders with tension. The slime on Nagi's shoulder also trembles, feeling the unbearable pressure. Such darkness would make any ordinary creature tremble. Suddenly, the darkness dissipates, and scorched black feathers fall from the sky. The hippogriff is gone. Belagius looks at its smoking remains. The baby whimpers softly, exhausted and beaten after a terrible fight. Calling his name, Nagi rushes to the fallen prince. He conjures up a shining drop of magical essence at the tip of his finger. A soft warmth envelops Belagius, instantly healing his body. Nagi praises the baby for his courage and gently hugs him. He offers the prince the remains of the hippogriff to help him recover. After eating, Belagius happily lets out a satisfying squeak. The peaceful moment is interrupted by a voice calling out to Lord Nagi. Two identical young men, Neo and Lua, approach him and greet him warmly. Nagi asks where they were, and they answer that they were helping their master. When asked if the work is complete, they mysteriously say, "Not yet." The brothers confess that their master wants to see Lord Nagi, but he suggests they meet later. They insist on an immediate meeting. Grabbing his hand, and a magical seal flashes on his skin. A gray-bearded sage stands nearby, looking with a slight tiredness in his eyes. The senior apologizes for the student's persistence, trying to resolve the situation. He explains that he wants to introduce Nagi to someone important. Elder Yuki addresses the blonde, saying that there is no need for a long explanation. The man calls himself Mutu Hirawaki, another immigrant from Japan. Nagi is stunned. In front of him is another person from his world. He remembers that Yuki had already mentioned him, although he imagined it completely differently. Hirawaki casually asks to be called Hiromu. Nagi introduces himself as Nagi Sajima, and they shake hands. At the moment of touch, a spark flashes and Nagi's eyes widen. He asks Hiroma if he's even human, and Hiroma just smiles. Hiromu discovers that despite his human appearance, his true form is that of a sacred dragon. Nagi is stunned to learn that his fellow immigrant is a dragon. Hiromu notices a small dragon and wonders who it is. Nagi introduces him as Belagius, son of the dark dragon Dazotus. Hiromu immediately recognizes the little dragon as Dazotus' child. He fondly recalls that Dazotus was always a reliable ally and helped him. Clenching his fists, Nagi cautiously asks if Hiromu knows about the recent events. Lowering his head, he announces with pain that Dazotus has died. Hiromu's face contorts in shock and he exclaims that it's impossible. Mage explains that this is why he took the orphaned Belagius into his care. Frowning, Hiromu demands to tell him everything that happened. After listening to the tragic story, he bitterly calls it terrible. Grabbing his head, Hiromu asks if the Ligvinus kingdom is involved in this. Elder Agatsuma intervenes, having gloomy news about this kingdom. He reveals their plan. They will soon go to war against the dragon village. Hiromu links this to recent incidents, the mansion collapse and the attack on the treasury. Agatsuma confirms that the dark dragon has been officially blamed for everything. The kingdom is now using this as an excuse to take revenge on the village. Nagi angrily denies this, claiming that it was the kingdom that started this conflict. Agatsuma agrees but emphasizes that it's much more complicated than that. He says that forbidden magic is a power that only demons can possess. Everyone is overcome by a terrifying realization. Demons have manipulated the kingdom. An ancient scroll describes demons as a race punished for rebelling against the gods. It also talks about their hatred and habit of destroying other races. Nagi understands with cold certainty that the real enemies of this world are the demons. He asks if this means the people here are not to blame. Hiromu, seething with anger, replies that the human heroes killed the dragon anyway. His dragon eye flares, and he vows to show people the true horror of dragons. Nagi looks anxiously at his angry friend, calling him by name. Hiromu says he can't stand by when the dragon's resting place is threatened with disgrace. He remembers his promise to honor the power of Dazotus. Hiromu asks if this means Nagi will join their revenge. Nagi admits that he is torn between duty and the reluctance to hurt innocent people. Agatsuma agrees that harm to civilians must be avoided. His gaze hardens as he announces his request. He instructs them to go to the dragon village and defend it from the army. Hiromu sighs, accepting the inevitability of this task. Nagi also agrees, and Hiromu thanks him for his support. Agatsuma promises to personally investigate the involvement of demons in the kingdom's actions. Hiromu's expression softens and he looks intently at his friend. Having caught Nagi's attention, he prepares to apologize for his abruptness. He admits that his anger got the better of him and dragged Nagi into this matter. Nagi responds with a soft smile, grateful for the help, but adds something important. He clarifies that in fact he is not a stranger to this conflict at all. From his first meeting with Dazotus, Nagi felt a special connection to the dragon village. He confesses that he wants to protect the house of Belagius in honor of Dazotus. A slight but sincere smile of respect appears on Hiromu's face. He remarks that Nagi really does have a big heart, just like Yuki said. Hiromu formally thanks him, stating that he now relies on the Great Spirit. Shining particles of light begin to swirl and gather in the air. With a mighty sweep, Hiromu's majestic white wings unfold. The dragon soars into the sky, preparing for a long journey. Nagi and his companions climb onto his back, thanking him for the ride. One of the companions sighs, regretting that he couldn't take the boy Jonah with him. The flashback takes us to the moment when Nagi announces his departure to the dragon village. He assures his worried friends that their city will not be drawn into the conflict. Informs the dark elves that he will be gone for a while. Suddenly, Yona runs up to Lord Nagi, screaming. He begs to take him with him on this dangerous journey. He insists that he can now fight, having learned to wield the sword of the spirit. His greatest desire is to finally become useful to his respected lord. Nagi gently places her hand on the boy's head and softly says his name. He acknowledges that Jonah has grown significantly, both in body and spirit. But he explains that helping is not just about fighting side by side. He entrusts Jonah with the defense of the city along with everyone else. The guy clenches his fists, realizing the weight of this duty. His gaze hardens and he accepts his new role without hesitation. Jonah wishes the Lord a safe journey and asks him to take care of himself. Back in the present, Nagi thinks about Jonah's straightforwardness and sincerity. He turns to the little dragon, saying that this applies to him too. Belagius rubs affectionately against Nagi, making him smile despite his sharp horns. Hiromu notes that Belagius is also worried about his homeland. Nagi admits that he hesitated about taking the child, but decided to respect her feelings. He firmly ordered Belagius not to participate in the war and to behave politely. Hiromu jokingly translates his squeak as, "Yes, Dad," which surprises Nagi. The dragon narrows his gaze, sensing that they are close to their goal. Nagi's eyes widen with anticipation. A dragon village appears in the valley, the very center of the storm. A voice greets them as they fly up to the decorated village gates. The horned elder introduces himself as Royus and welcomes the guests. He officially names them Nagi, Hiromu, and Belagius. Nagi politely confirms and smiles at the elder. Royus bows low, sincerely inviting them to the village. Belagius squeaks happily and jumps on the elder's head. Royus warmly notes how much the little dragon has grown. Nagi's face turns serious as he begins to explain the purpose of their journey. The elder sincerely thanks you for your willingness to protect the village. He reports that the enemy army will arrive in a few days. Nagi asks to first take Belagius to the resting place of Dazotus. Royus agrees and says he will personally guide them to the dragon mausoleum. The sun's rays illuminate the majestic temple built on a high cliff. A stone monument in the shape of a giant dragon rises before them. Nagi silently gazes at this majesty, filled with quiet awe. Hiromu remarks that this is an extremely beautiful and peaceful place for Dazotus to rest. Belagius whimpers softly, filled with unspeakable sadness. Tears as big as crystal roll from his eyes. Nagi looks at him with his own deep regret for his dragon friend. He falls to his knees, wishing he could see him alive again. Nagi vows to protect Belagius and the dragon village, strengthening his resolve. An ethereal dragon spirit emerges from a stone monument. The ghost thanks Nagi, calling him a friend, and gradually disappears. As the moment dies down, Hiromu catches Nagi's attention. He suggests visiting the Sanctuary of Twilight, where Dazotus once resided. Nagi agrees, noticing that Belagius is also eagerly desiring to go there. From above, a dark, deep rift is visible, cutting through the rocky, forested landscape. The companion, standing on the edge, confirms that the path lies through this gorge. The squad begins its descent into the dark depths of a vast rift. Having reached the bottom, the young man exclaims that he sees their destination. They run across the desert floor towards the black, gaping entrance of a large cave. Touching the rocky wall, Nagi realizes that this is the right place. Suddenly, a strange feeling pierces him, and his eyes widen in surprise. He looks back at his friend, asking if he too felt someone's presence. Peering into the darkness, Nagi realizes that the feeling is coming from the depths of the cave. A mysterious silhouette lurks in the shadows, watched by a small creature that looks like a baby dragon. Wary eyes flashed from the darkness, demanding an explanation of the purpose of the invasion. Nagi calls himself the Great Spirit of Water and asks who stands before him. He wonders if the mysterious stranger is also the Great Spirit. The figure calls himself Formus, the Great Spirit of Darkness, the master of this cave. Formus asks what brought Nagi to these depths. He explains that his familiar dragon, who lived here, recently died. He admits that he wanted to see the place that was home to the dragon. Formus senses that there is a deeper reason, and Nagi hesitantly confirms this. The Dark Spirit notes that Nagi is not very similar to other spirits because he interacts with humans. Returning, Formus says that he will remember him. After leaving the cave, Nagi explains to his companion that he had just spoken with the Great Spirit of Darkness. He recalls how he called him not very spirit-like, and Hiromu agrees with a smile. Before Nagi's inner gaze, the pagoda of the village appears, awakening the hope of meeting again. They rested for several days, learning the gentle nature of the dragon people. Nagi realizes that he cannot stand aside when the place where his friends live is in danger. In silence, he vows to protect the village and its inhabitants at all costs. A sudden foreboding pierces him, and his eyes widen with alarm. Hiromu turns to him, and Nagi confirms that he has already sensed the events approaching. In a voice full of weight, Hiromu announces the approach of the enemy army. He asks if Nagi is ready for his first large-scale battle against humans. Nagi admits that although he fought to save others, he had never taken a human life. But he gathers his courage, knowing that this battle will decide the fate of the village. He asks Hiroma if he is ready for the upcoming fight. He says quietly that memories of his own former humanity are quickly fading. He pragmatically adds that they are no longer human, but are merely adapting to this world. However, conversations with Nagi remind him of who he once was. That's why he wants to end the fight quickly, and they promise to do everything they can. Hiromu's determination is tempered. He wants to eradicate the demons and end the war. The messenger rushes in, urgently calling for Lord Nagi and Lord Takamura. She confirms their fears. The army of the kingdom of Luganus has been spotted. Heavy clouds gather in the sky, giving the battle a gloomy, foreboding tone. On the plains of Creole, an enemy camp rages with thousands of warriors preparing to attack. From the cliff, Hiromu estimates the enemy's strength at around 20,000. The dragon warrior gives data about his own strength. They have less than 3,000 fighters and 200 elite dragon knights. Each of these horsemen has the strength of 200 men. They say that one such warrior is capable of defeating the hero alone. Nagi, with a gloomy face, says that he senses 5 powerful auras among the enemies. Hiromu concludes that these are 5 legendary heroes. From their shelter, it is clear that the enemy has already launched an offensive. A shining magical crown is revealed in the sky. It expands into a vast spell circle saturated with dark energy. Black and red flames explode, covering the plains in a deadly wave. Nagi watches, acknowledging the enemy spellcaster's skill in summoning. A fiery beast in heavy armor bursts out of the flames. His attack is stopped by a shimmering water barrier that cracks with the force of the fire. Nagi extends his hand, declaring that he will completely block the blow. Hiromu warns him and says that now it will be his turn to act. He leaps off a cliff, transforming in flight and diving into the very heart of the battle. With a devastating blast of energy, Hiromu confronts the fiery beast in a deadly duel. Nagi watches the explosion, confident in the strength of his friend Hiromu. He believes that this counterattack is capable of breaking the enemy's onslaught, but that confidence crumbles instantly when he senses a new threat. The cold gleam of steel appears near his neck, a killer blow. Below, a warrior screams Nagi's name in terror as he sees the attack unfold. The dragon warrior Takamuto throws himself in front of him, taking the blow. A dark, distorted blade sticks out of his side as a medic rushes to help. The doctor begs you to hold on, promising that help is on the way. Meanwhile, an invisible ally intercepts the fleeing assassin, disarming her in one move. A figure in a cloak and mask holds the captive tightly, preventing her from escaping. Lying under guard, Takamuto asks hoarsely if Lord Nagi is unharmed. Nagi apologizes for making him take such a risk, and the killer lies defeated. The masked ally says their goal was to capture her alive. Nagi assumes that this is one of the heroes. After all, an ordinary person wouldn't get through like that. He admits that he wants to question her because he has important questions. The ally understands it and promises to keep a close eye on the captive. Nagi announces that he is going to the enemy camp to search for Hiromu. He follows him with his gaze, warning him to be careful. A bone-breaking blow bites into the enemy's face with terrifying force. Hiromu, in battle attire, deals this blow to the hefty warrior. The defeated man clenches his broken jaw, cursing his gecko-like attacker. Hiromu defiantly asks if that's all a hero is capable of. He growls that Hiromu should enjoy his confidence while he can. His words are picked up by a short, blonde girl with a determined look. Suddenly, she rushes at Hiromu with incredible speed. She exclaims that he is full of gaps in his defense and unleashes a barrage of blows. Fierce determination burns in her eye, until she gives him no chance. The three heroes surround Hiromu, who is standing in the middle of a rocky wasteland. The heavy halberd in the hands of the female knight slams into him with colossal force. Hiromu dodges and kicks, knocking another knight back. He stops the blow of the halberd with one hand, demonstrating his superiority. With one smooth movement, he unleashes an explosion that scatters the heroes in different directions. A young blonde screams in pain as she flies away from the shockwave. An observer notes that Hiromu is capable of defeating all three single-handedly. Looking down on his defeated enemies, he mockingly asks if this is their limit. Then he declares that he feels an even more threatening presence. With a decisive step, he moves towards the next goal. Nagi arrives at the scene of the destruction, recognizing the traces of Hiromu's attack. He walks through the silent burning places, sensing no human life, only an alarming echo. Approaching the tattered tents, he determines the source of the strange feeling. An invisible voice in panic repeats that the situation is catastrophic. Huddled behind a chest, the robed woman exclaims in shock at the unexpected turn of events. A calm voice asks if she plans to run away. She defiantly confirms. In despair, she cannot believe that her demon has been defeated with one blow. A handsome man appears before her, his voice sounding cold and confident. A whirlpool of water swirls, trapping the stunned woman in magical captivity. Surrounded by a water barrier, she nervously asks who grabbed her. He calmly calls himself her enemy, offering to surrender peacefully. She screams that it's a lie and refuses to believe his words. Putting forward the grimoire, she summons a powerful minotaur. Nagi watches intently as his own water turns into an enemy. The minotaur created from his magic charges forward with a roar. The spellcaster triumphs, claiming that he is now doomed. Her eyes light up and she begins to conjure an even grander being. A giant snake-like beast appears before them, a bakwana. The monster's dead eyes stare at Naga, preparing to attack. A whirlpool pulls him into the monster's mouth, and he prepares for the decisive step. He is pulled helplessly towards the monster's rows of sharp teeth. In the moment before being swallowed, it touches the water inside. With unwavering confidence, he declares that this water belongs to him, its true owner. A bright flash of light from within destroys the summoned monster. Nagi coldly tells her stunned enemy that she has made a fatal mistake. She screams and asks why her magic doesn't work against him. He advises her to stop her futile resistance, but she only cries out in rage. In desperation, she summons a legion of legendary monsters. With a roar, a giant fanged beast appears. The many-headed hydra stares into Naga with its many eyes, having received orders to kill. Meanwhile, the hero wonders how the three of them can't defeat one person. Hiromu smiles contemptuously, mocking the hero's pitiful strength. The young heroine Fraser angrily attacks him, telling him not to be arrogant. Hiromu calmly decides it's time to end this fight. He easily dodges her attack, preparing to strike back. A powerful blow with the palm leaves a dark mark at the point of impact. -1, he announces coldly, looking at his fallen opponent. The female knight fiercely swears that her sacrifice will not be in vain. A powerful warrior nearby agrees, declaring that their chance has come. The swordswoman summons a shower of magical blades aimed at the enemy. Her companion follows, hitting the ground, releasing an explosion of destructive force. Their techniques merge into a single powerful stream of deadly energy. Breathing heavily, the heroes ask each other if they were able to defeat him. A momentary flash of movement shows that their attack was completely futile. Hiromu stands unharmed, calmly clenching his fist as the blow dissipates. With an invisible blow, he throws the last two heroes far aside. With his clothes torn in battle, Hiromu coldly declares that the battle is over. In the distance, another warrior notices that Nagi is also fighting and hesitates whether to intervene. His fists flare with energy, ready for a possible fight. Meanwhile, Nagi desperately fights off a multi-armed water golem. A multi-headed monster with toothy, eerie smiles rises from the water. The powerful onslaught of water magic relentlessly pushes Nagi back. The monster's central mouth opens, creating a powerful vortex. Nagi is pulled into the raging current, his face filled with anxiety. He is being inexorably pulled towards the throat of a monster ready to swallow him. He looks at the water around him, realizing the seriousness of the situation. Once in the watery depths, he realizes that he is starting to lose. Suddenly, a dark, viscous liquid erupts from the monster in a suicidal attack. His eyes widen in shock. It's hydrovenom. The poison erupts outward, causing the summoned beast to dissolve in agony. Nagi grimly realizes that there is no loophole for a normal attack. His fighting style is based on finding weaknesses that are not there. The enemy is formless, like an element that cannot be hit directly. He realizes that the usual methods will not help here. In desperation, he asks himself how to break this hopeless confrontation. His consciousness is transported to a library where a forbidden volume is chained. He feels the incredible power of the book, knowing that this place always gives him answers. He reaches for the chains, realizing that the book was locked for a reason. He knows that the knowledge in it is not only forbidden, but also dangerous. But to escape the trap, he has no other choice. With a burst of determination, he breaks the chains, unleashing the power of the book. His eyes burn with new purpose. He embraces forbidden knowledge. The spellcaster smiles ominously, realizing that it is no longer possible to stop him. Her gaze suddenly fills with terror as she realizes what is about to happen. Nagi stands at the center of the chaos, a giant whirlpool of water swirling around him. He closes his eyes, accepting his fate, and prepares a forbidden spiritual art. His eyes open, no longer human but filled with the blinding light of another world. He becomes the center of a huge ball of power that overshadows enemies. His body dissolves into water and mist, releasing a realm of mist and destruction. The wave of destructive energy expands, leaving only Nagi and the fallen spell. She, shocked, whispers to herself, asking what just happened. Light strands of mist break from Nagi's body as the powerful spell fades. Barely able to stand, he heads towards the unconscious woman, exhausted from the fight. He hesitates, wondering if she's simply passed out from shock. Exhausted, he falls, admitting that he used too much force and his body painfully recovers. His mind returns once again to the terrible technique that erases purpose from existence. He managed to keep the spell within the barrier, knowing that otherwise it would have killed him too. He glances at the unconscious woman, knowing he has to question her further. Crawling closer, he begs her not to die right now. The spellcaster comes to her senses and says bitterly that the prisoner took his own life. She wanted to ask him about demons, but the dragonmen didn't have time to stop him. The blonde Agatsuma greets the exhausted Hiromu, rejoicing that he has finally come to his senses. He introduces a new captive, the hero who summoned the fire giant. Agatsuma admits that he has felt something strange about her since the fight. He notes her powerful magical aura and demonic horns, which confirmed his suspicions. He is certain that this is the demon the dead prisoner spoke of. He asks Hiroma if he should kill her, considering her too dangerous. The captive trembles, realizing what answer she is most likely to hear. Spitting out the gag, she splashes a wave of water from her mouth. She begs to spare her, confesses that she is a demon and promises to tell everything. But her scream is suddenly cut off as a curse pierces her body. She writhes in convulsions, and a wave of dark filth erupts from her mouth. Hiromu and Agatsuma exclaim in shock, recognizing the self-destruction spell. Suddenly, Nagi intervenes in the fight, and the companion anxiously calls his name. The horned woman's face is contorted in pain, her eyes tightly closed. Nagi says with relief that he made it, and his friend is surprised by this decision. He explains that the body acted instinctively, and the spiritual senses are able to distinguish lies. Agatsuma notes that Nagi did not hesitate, even in his weakened state. Nagi clarifies that he is not sentimental and will destroy her if she poses a threat. The companion says the situation is suspicious, recalling the same death of a previous prisoner. Nagi suspects the effect of a spell of silence, because no one would beg for their life only to be poisoned immediately. He rests, exhausted by the strange ending of the battle. A peaceful sky with scattered clouds hangs above the ground. A brief lull. The camera moves to the traditional tiled roof of a building in the village. The little dragon Belagius sleeps peacefully on his pillow, panting softly. Bare feet quietly tread along the wooden corridor towards the sleeping creature. Belagius's eyes instantly widen with joy and recognition. Nagi stands over him and warmly announces his return. The baby dragon jumps into Nagi's arms, happily nuzzling against his cheek. In quiet reflection, Nagi recalls that the war with Luganus ended in 5 hours. He remembers their complete victory without any casualties among the dragon people while Hiromu stood by. But his thoughts darken. The battle has revealed to him the terrifying ruthlessness of the demons. He realizes with grim certainty that the war with them is still very far from over. For now, he decides to simply enjoy the joy of victory and the peace of the village he and his friends managed to save. Several weeks have passed since the defeat of the kingdom of Luganus. Nagi regains his strength in the village, heeding his friend's advice to give the magic time to heal. A large bird brings a message while they wait for Agatsuma's response. To save time, Nagi practices calligraphy with brush and ink. The demonic girl Mashris proudly shows off her flower drawing. Her guardian Sina gently praises her work, assuring her that she has real talent. From afar, Nagi confirms to Hiroma that the girl has been like this since she woke up. He calls her Mashris and remarks that she is wonderfully childlike and carefree. Explains that she lost all memories after the age of 8. A vision of her past suffering flashes through his mind for a moment, a likely side effect of the silencing spell. Hiromu reports that he received word from Yuki about the meeting next week. Yuki also requests that Nagi be present in person. Hiromu wonders how he feels after his rest. Nagi clenches his fist and confidently says that he is now in shape and ready to act. A drop of water falls to the ground, as if symbolizing healing and the passage of time. The invisible voice pays tribute to them for their important role in the conflict. Sage Yuki greets them with relief, happy that everyone is safe and sound. Mashris hides behind Sina, frightened by the presence of such powerful people. Sina apologizes, explaining that the girl only calms down when she is around. Mashris cautiously peeks out from behind, her eyes wide with fear. Yuki looks at her carefully and says that she doesn't look like a pure-blooded demon. He concludes that she is probably a half-breed, half-human. As proof, he points to traces of a curse peculiar only to demons. The sage explains that it caused her incredible torment and exhaustion. She was even given a false identity, but Nagi's healing lifted that seal. Hiromu asks why she still acts like a child and is afraid of both of them. Yuki suggests that she perceives their strong auras as demonic. He explains that her consciousness regressed to avoid a wave of painful memories. The sage concludes that she was oppressed by the very demons she was forced to serve. Nagi realizes that in battle she acted out of desperation, knowing that defeat meant death. Hiromu changes the subject and asks about the investigation in the Luganus kingdom. Yuki says that his liaison there suddenly went silent, arousing suspicion. This prompted him to go there in person to check out what was happening. But as soon as he arrived, his incredible magical power was immediately felt. The city guard demanded to be identified, wary of his aura. The guards called him a suspicious fool, their voices ringing with irritation. The order was given to immediately capture the unknown but extremely powerful guest. Yuki immediately realized that the guards had been possessed by demons. With a gloomy look, he declared that he would free them from this curse. The sage unleashes a wave of cleansing magic, washing away the curse from the guards around him. In an instant, the spell that had permeated the entire kingdom crumbles to dust. The barely perceptible demonic presence disappears, hinting at the enemy's flight. He wonders if the demons have completed their plan in this kingdom. The investigation reveals the terrible. Even the king and the nobility were under control. The sage tells Nagi and Hiro that there is another disturbing discovery. Nagi is horrified to hear about the disappearance of slaves and spirit magicians. Yuki concludes, without a doubt, demons are behind everything. Nagi is tormented by the question of why they need these prisoners. Hiromu declares that he will report everything to the Dragon King because the threat is enormous. The sage admits that with his intervention, the dragon tribe will act immediately. He warns Hiroma not to cause a massacre, and he grimly promises to refrain. The sage then asks Nagi to contact the other great spirits. Nagi mentions the neutral Formus, the great spirit of darkness. He admits that he has not yet met any of them in person. Having shaken off his doubts, he decides that now is not the time for hesitation. He promises to do his best, and the sage thanks him for his willingness. Nagi suddenly remembers that he has something to tell Yuki. He holds out a magical tome, which the sage immediately recognizes. He turns the pages and frowns, feeling an excessive amount of power in him. Later, Yuki approaches Mashris, gently calling her by name. He advises you to stay to cleanse your body of dark magic. Explains that peace is the best medicine for a wounded heart. He reaches out to pat her head. A light touch and warm words. After all the suffering, she can finally rest. Mashris quietly agrees with moist eyes, tears glistening on her cheeks. Sina is surprised at how easily the sage found an approach to her. Yuki says with a smile that he has also raised much more stubborn students. Nagi is relieved to leave the girl in their care. The sun shines over the road as he sets off back to his homeland. Upon returning, Nagi looks around in surprise. His settlement had become much larger than he remembered. Two boys, Jonah and Ruto, spot him and joyfully shout his name. They rush into his arms, laughing with happiness. Jonah glows with joy, looking at him after a long separation. Nage notices the many new buildings that have appeared during his absence. Jonah cheerfully confirms that the number of residents has increased significantly. He calls everyone to welcome the return of his lord. A long, scaly tail quietly creeps out of the shadows of the forest. The Alamia woman bows her head politely, apologizing for her unexpected appearance, and greeting Lord Nagi. A woman with long white hair calls her people the Lamia tribe. A full view reveals her serpentine body, confirming her origins. Their story emerges in a stylized memoir, a century of persecution and fear because they were considered monsters. She bows low, begging for protection and pledging her undying devotion to Lord Naga. Sensing the absence of malice, Nagi decides to accept them without demanding service. He says he only wants cooperation and peace with all residents. The leader of the Lamias, moved to tears, thanks him for his generosity. Nagi watches them, full of hope for their happy life in their new home. The elf companion draws attention to another group of newcomers, stocky dwarves. Nagi asks his friend Garuda about the dwarves he met on his travels. Garuda explains that after listening to their story, the dwarves decided to settle here. A representative of the dwarves solemnly asks for permission to live in the city. As a sign of goodwill, he presents Nagi with a carefully wrapped gift. Unfolding it, Nagi sees a luxurious, expertly decorated sword that makes the elven boys freeze. The dwarf proudly declares that this is a masterpiece created by newly arrived blacksmiths. Rudo's eyes shine with delight. He can't take his eyes off the blade. Nagi asks if the boy wants to hold the sword. Rudo seizes the opportunity, his face beaming with genuine joy. Nagi strokes his head warmly. He asks permission from the dwarf Gorsar to give the sword to the boy. He promises to keep the blade until Rudo masters the art of swordsmanship. Jonah, smiling proudly, congratulates his younger brother on such a gift. Nage understands that as the city grows, a new need has emerged. The protective barrier around the settlement will have to be expanded. He asks Jonah and Rudo to find Philly and the others and bring them to him. Later, at his estate, Nagi hears a relieved, "Good thing you're back," from his companions. He gathers them around the table, saying he has an important request. He explains with concentration. He wants to make them his messengers. Philly asks if this is about spirits and the events in the Dragon Village. Nagi confirms, adding that he needs the support of the elves. The friends are shocked to learn that demons were involved in the conflict. He states that he seeks to unite with the spirits to protect the world. Philly, with a determined face, vows to do her best. Beastman File clenches his fist, silently promising support. The leader of the Lamias is also ready to give all her strength for the common cause. Nagi is surprised when Fail suddenly gets up to leave. He says he must act separately but promises to return. Nagi has never seen him so serious and wonders why. Fail thanks for understanding and promises to return again. Before the messengers depart, Nagi stops them with an important request. He takes out a huge crystal spirit stone, glowing with an inner light. One of the companions notes that the power of the stone will prove their status as spirit messengers. Philly accepts the stone, and the squad sets off on an important diplomatic journey. The frame shows a clenched fist from which a viscous magical liquid flows. 2 months later, Philly and her companions return from the Elven Kingdom. They do not arrive alone. They are accompanied by a solemn detachment of elven guards. Nagi is stunned by the unexpected appearance of so many guards. The majestic elf bows, conveying greetings from the kingdom of Finrailt. He calls himself Will Ryan Lunikia Finral, which stuns Nagi. Nagi understands that Lunikia means crown prince in Elvish. He sighs, realizing that he had only planned to send the previous envoy, not the nobles themselves. Despite his surprise, Nagi solemnly welcomes the prince and his entourage to his estate. He immediately asks Philly what happened to warrant such a visit. She explains that the power of the stone was felt all the way to the palace. Before the royal family, they were recognized as connected to a great spirit. The king took this so seriously that he personally dispatched the prince. Philly admits that they have become accustomed to Nagi's power and have forgotten what an impression she makes. Nagi agrees that everyone should be more careful with things like this. Inside the estate, the crown prince formally addresses Lord Nagi. He presents a letter with the royal seal from his father, King Lucian. Nagi accepts the letter from the prince, who is on his knee, and promises to read it. He carefully breaks the wax seal of the official message. His gaze quickly glides over the elegant writing, absorbing the meaning. He feels the king's sincere will to establish harmonious relations. Nage expresses his desire for a close alliance between their peoples. The prince confirms that the kingdom is ready to provide full support. He asks to hear the details of Nagi's request. He tells about the war with Lugina and the meeting with the dark dragon Dazotus. The prince notes that the involvement of demons explains the activity of the dragon people. Nagi clarifies that he needs the help of the elves to communicate with the other spirits. The prince, in turn, asks if there is anything he can do to help. He insists that Nagi not be shy about asking for cooperation. The prince admits that he has a personal burden, the illness of his grandfather, the former king. He explains that it is a mysterious and incurable illness. Nagi offers a small vial of water from his lake as a possible cure. He confidently says that she has lifted the forbidden curse and must help the king. The prince is stunned, clarifying whether this is about the legendary curse. Overwhelmed with gratitude, he believes his grandfather will now recover. After a few days, successful trade negotiations are concluded and the elves set off back. But as soon as the prince and his entourage leave, a new group of guests appears. Fail returns, apologizing to Nagi for the long wait. Next to him stands a formidable beastman warrior, solemnly calling Nagi a great spirit. Nagi warmly greets Fail, but looks at his new companions in surprise. Fail gestures for someone else to introduce himself. The majestic white tiger calls himself Sharo. He says he came from the Beastmen Federation, the Kingdom of Judas. Sharo explains that they came on the advice of Prince Fairy, and in accordance with the Deform Pact. Nagi, confused, tries to politely introduce himself in response. He repeats the name Prince Farian as a question, looking at the confused Fail. Fail avoids his eyes, confirming an incredible truth. Nagi takes a step back, shocked by what he heard and trying to comprehend the news. Fail confesses that he is the third Judas prince to run away from home. He announces that he has informed his father and received his consent to the union. The Kingdom of Judas seeks to establish a strong relationship with a great spirit. Sharo claims that the prince spoke of Nagi with unwavering faith. He adds that Nagi's divine aura and protective barrier finally convinced him. Sharo humbly asks permission to serve Lord Nagi, and he happily agrees. Fail proposes to begin diplomatic negotiations without delay. Several official documents with prescribed conditions are laid out on the table. Nagi is carefully studying the Mutual Defense Treaty, where his role is defined as military support. With a firm look, he clarifies that he will not intervene if Judas becomes the aggressor. The hand draws up a clause in the agreement about mutual assistance to citizens during disasters. The prince prescribes the terms of trade, emphasizing mutual respect and restraint. He asks if Naj is happy with the current deal and leaves room for future changes. With a predatory smile, Fail confirms his loyalty as the Prince of Judas. Nagi smiles warmly, saying that he looks forward to their collaboration. Their hands clasp tightly, cementing a new union. Philly expresses concern about Nagi's sudden trip to the Dragon Village. He explains his goals, creating an anti-demon alliance and developing trade. Almina cheerfully offers to take over the negotiations so that Nagi doesn't have to worry. The children promise to protect the city and take care of Belagius during his absence. Nagi reassures Philly, telling her not to worry. His face turns serious as he adds that he has to meet one person in person. A majestic pagoda rises among the mountains, from which greetings to Lord Naga resound. The Dragon Elder is sincerely happy to meet him again. The smiling faces of Jonah, Rudo, and Almina are shown nearby. Nagi officially introduces Jonah as his contractor and Almina as a trade envoy. The Elder confirms Nagi's plans to visit the Forbidden Sanctuary after the conversation. In a dark cave, Nagi loudly calls out to someone named Formus. A mysterious figure appears from the darkness, wanting to speak with Nagi alone. A mysterious figure warns Nagi to be on guard against the growing threat of demons. Nagi, slightly surprised, promises to remember this, asking what else is important to know. Formus looks at him with concern, stating that Nagi has overextended his strength. His body begins to crumble into light particles, and Formus explains that the force has become unstable. A watery liquid flows from his hand, and Formus warns that his existence may disappear. Nagi protests, fearing that if he falls asleep now, he won't be able to fight the demons. Formus advises him not to try to carry everything on his own, because it will only hurt. The luminous symbol illustrates the spiritual connection between Nagi and his contract partner. Seeing Nagi's hands continue to dissolve, Formus urges them to trust others and rest. Under the light of the full moon, Nagi silently accepts that he understands what he must do. He lies in bed, surrounded by his little sleeping companions. Left alone, he sits in front of the opened screen, staring into the night. He quietly reflects on his habit of always deciding everything himself. He recalls the belief that this is his duty, as one who possesses great power. Jonah, waking up, asks if Nagi woke him up, but he admits that he just can't sleep. The guy gently reminds him of his plans for tomorrow and advises him to rest. His eyes suddenly widen as he notices the strange changes in Nagi's outstretched hand. A close-up shows Jonah reaching for his slowly dissolving hand. Grabbing her, he looks anxiously at the watery disintegration, while Nagi lets out a sharp cry. Jonah grips her unsteady hand tightly, drops of pale liquid dripping between their fingers. With tears in his eyes, he says that he has known about this for a long time. Looking at his friend with deep compassion, Jonah says that he is exhausted to the point of exhaustion. He suggests that Nagi go to sleep, but he refuses because he is afraid of not being able to protect them. A memory of Nagi's words once flashed in Jonah's eyes. He reminds him of his promise to defend the city with them. Jonah admits that he was happy to hear this, as was everyone who listened at the time. The picture shows the grateful faces of the people he saved, ready to help. Jonah begs him not to exhaust himself to the point of exhaustion. Kneeling, he holds his hands and asks him to rely more on others. Jonah's face glows with genuine hope as he looks up at Nagi. A glimmer of understanding and acceptance of these words appears in Nagi's eyes. A single tear falls from his eye, a sign of gratitude and relief. He thanks Jonah, admitting that he helped him decide. With a slight smile, Nagi finally agrees to get some rest. He tells about his journey to the lake, where he takes Jonah and Belagius with him. Friends gather to wish him a speedy recovery, and Nagi thanks him for his support. Almina and Belagius, with tears in their eyes, beg Lord Nagi for a speedy recovery. Young Helio clenches his fists, vowing to become stronger to be useful. Nagi addresses Suiko's spirit, asking if she wants to become his daughter. He instructs Suiko to guard the lake, but asks her not to repeat his recklessness. Jonah stands before Nagi, promising to do his best while his master sleeps. With a confident wink, he advises not to worry and to get a good rest. Nagi returns to the lake, a quiet determination in his eyes, and a faint sign of his choice in the air. He thanks Jonah and promises to return, stepping into the cool water. Friends cry out for him to rely on them and pray for him. Nagi's consciousness dissolves into the starry depths of the lake, falling asleep. His last thought is a warm farewell and a promise to see each other again. Jonah and Helio watch as the surface of the lake glows with the energy of Nagi's departure. Someone's hand wipes away a tear, a silent farewell full of determination. Jonah's hand, marked with the seal of the contract, hovers over the water surface. Years pass, and only one bubble disturbs the calm surface of the lake. The younger boy asks his older brother Jonah what happened. Looking out at the water, Jonah says with confidence that Lord Nagi has awakened. The younger brother and Belagius freeze in complete shock at what they heard. A serpent, created from pure water, bursts out of the water, and Jonah joyfully calls out Nagi's name. Nagi rises from the lake, enveloped in a whirlpool of shining water. Jonah runs to him, and Nagi greets him with a gentle, "Good morning." He smiles, noting that Jonah has grown up, and a lot of time has passed since their last meeting. Nagi says it's been 5 years since he fell asleep. He jokingly congratulates Belagius, noting that the little dragon has grown up too. Yona proudly boasts that he has grown bigger himself, and Agatsuma laughs softly. Agatsuma explains that he predicted Nagi's awakening and came to meet him. He apologizes for this moment, but says he has a lot of news to discuss at the estate. The diminutive Nagi looks up at the majestic building, his thoughts still in the past. Along the way, he notices modern skyscrapers and wonders if they are residential buildings. Agatsuma explains that it is the work of dwarves, who implemented his long-standing idea for construction. Jonah proudly adds that they also built teleportation circles and underground passages. Nagi's face becomes more serious as he asks about the situation outside their barrier. Agatsuma grimly confirms his fears by mentioning demons. For the last 3 years, demons have been changing monsters and sending them on attacks. These attacks were devastating, nearly destroying some countries, especially human ones. Agatsuma believes this is just a rehearsal for something much bigger. Nagi remembers the basilisk, wondering if he was part of the demon creation. Jonah confirms that their city was also attacked by these altered monsters. The younger brother proudly says that it was Jonah who defeated them. Nagi is amazed and delighted, calling his act incredible. Yona modestly clarifies that he had help, and Suiko was maintaining the city's barrier. Nagi sincerely thanks everyone for protecting the city during his absence. Jonah explains that something strange happened during the defense. It shows a black crystal with jagged edges that fell from a defeated monster. Young Nagi examines the black crystal with jagged edges, wondering what kind of strange thing it is. In a sharp close-up, his eye suddenly widens with an unexpected insight. He recognizes the dark aura, the same one that emanated from the cursed descendant of the dragon Dazotus. A shining drop of magical liquid falls from his finger, touching the dark stone. The crystal explodes with a blinding glow. Its shape begins to change. Yona exclaims as the crystal turns red, and Nagi explains that it was a fire spirit stone. Jonah asks what a spirit stone is, and the ethereal fire spirit replies that it is the very heart of the spirit. A terrible thought strikes Jonah. Tears well up. The monster he killed was a spirit. Elder Agatsuma confirms that it was probably a younger fire spirit. Nagi's hands clench into fists, his body tenses with anger. He considers this an unforgivable crime. His gaze burns with icy rage and an oath not to forgive the attackers and those who defiled the spirits. Jonah and Ruto involuntarily tremble at the force of his anger. Agatsuma claps his hands lightly, stopping the heavy conversation. The elder says that Nagi just woke up and needs to rest, and it's time for the boys to have dinner. Tired, Nagi quietly agrees. Later that night, under the crescent moon, Nagi thanks Agatsuma for his intervention. The old man guesses accurately that he was trying to hold the situation together when the tension rose. Agatsuma waves it off with a smile, joking that he's just hungry. His voice turns serious as he hands over a glass of wine and formally invites Nage to the Union Council. He explains that the council's goal is to unite humans and the Dragon Clan to stop the demonic plans. This great alliance includes elves, dwarves, beastmen, and dragonmen, led by the spiritual faction of the Nagi. Nagi worries if the other great spirits have been notified, since he has only just woken up. Agatsuma explains that the elves and spirits have already created a network for communication. The fire spirit confirms that the spirits of darkness, lava, desert, and thunder agree to cooperate. She adds that their agreement is only based on Nagi participating as well. Nagi realizes his key role as a bridge between allies and the great spirits, and Agatsuma confirms this. Upon learning that the council will take place in 5 days, he is surprised. They explain to him that the date was determined by a prophecy about his awakening. Agatsuma becomes serious and emphasizes that it is not possible to skip or replace a participant. The elder says he relies on him, and Nagi firmly agrees. Under the night sky, a voice says they will leave together in 5 days. A complex teleportation circle flares in the air, enveloping them in a pillar of light. They arrive at the Grand Hall, and Nagi, next to Agatsuma, asks where they are. Agatsuma replies that it is the palace of the Unashiya Empire, where everyone has already gathered. He describes the empire as a great human state with a long magical tradition, the perfect place to meet. Nagi understands the weight of an event taking place in such a powerful place. They enter the Council of Vassals Hall, where the leaders of the great nations sit around a giant round table. A human king with a crown and a mustache sits, staring thoughtfully into space. The majestic elf king, with dark circles under his eyes and long white hair, has a stern, closed gaze. A young man with disheveled hair, a representative of the dragons, rests his chin on his hand with a confident, relaxed look. The stern, bearded dwarf king Vanov stares with unwavering determination, a heavy crown pressing against his forehead. The proud beastman lord and his horned companions sit in a restrained but tense posture. The dragon representative greets the dark-clad hero sitting opposite. The hero responds with a barely noticeable gesture and a confident smile. Standing up, he says that a lot of time has passed, and his friend looks restored. The dragon explains that he was busy restraining his own who seek revenge. He sighs that he hasn't even had a vacation since being appointed the Dragon King's right-hand man. The hero hopes that everything will be sorted out soon, so that his friend can finally rest, and he agrees. They sit down, finishing their brief conversation, and the council prepares to begin. Agatsuma stands up, thanking the assembled rulers for their presence at the crucial meeting. He states that many countries have already felt the terror of demons, and the threat will continue. The dwarf king crosses his arms with a grim face, listening to the warning that acting alone will lead to their doom. Agatsumi's voice sounds confident. They must unite and solve the problem together. The dwarf king raises his hand, wanting to speak. Vanov from the Dorgon Kingdom demands an explanation of what it means to solve a problem. Agatsuma reveals his prophecy. The demons are preparing a war that will break out in less than 3 years. He clenches his fist and says that solving the problem is winning the coming battle. Nage sees fear grip the room, understanding the depth of the leader's anxiety. The memory of legendary battles shows the united armies of races marching at the command of God. Even with divine support, the war was bloody and long, and the demons were never completely destroyed. Agatsuma breaks the wave of despair, acknowledging the enemy's strength, but urging them not to lose hope. One of the kings remarks that in the last war, the demon king was killed by a hero. The dwarf king reasons that now the demons should not have their former power. The human king adds that this time they have a new advantage. Nagi stands up with a confident smile. Now they have both dragons and great spirits. The dragon representative, once again full of hope, agrees that this is a great chance to win. The mood in the hall is changing. The leaders are beginning to believe that with such allies they will be able to win. Nagi feels hope spreading, uniting hearts thanks to Agatsumi's words. Suddenly his spiritual sense flares up. He senses an ominous presence. The gaze stops at a figure in a cloak and mask, from which an ominous flicker emanates. The dragon representative calls out to him anxiously, and a strange, powerful energy flashes in Nagi's hand. He releases a wave of power that surges out and swirls around the masked man. The stranger's eyes widen in shock as the force overwhelms him. He is pulled from his place, he exclaims in confusion. Enveloped in magical currents, chaos erupts in the hall, with shouts asking why Nagi attacked. With his hand outstretched, Nagi coldly demands an explanation for what he did. One of the kings confirms. He too felt a wave of anger from the man for a moment. The accused pleads for a mistake, claiming it was a misunderstanding. Agatsumi's voice cuts through the noise with just one word. No! A thin crack appears on the mask, spreading further. Agatsuma sternly states that the man's unstable magic has already proven his guilt. The mask flies away, revealing the traitor's ugly, demonic face to the stunned council.